Hi, welcome to the first actual episode of Not Another News Podcast. I'm Paul,
And I'm Jerry.
and we are here to bring you on an adventure through fake news, through propaganda, through all the components of these things. Before we get started, I'd like to say a big thanks to everyone who listened to our pilot episode, gave us some advice on moving forward. There'll be some actual shout outs to specific people at the bottom of this episode, just some people who particularly helped us, close friends, close family members and the likes. So the idea is going to be every week we're going to have a overarching theme in our episodes. This week, for example, should be immigration, but it's going to be a loose theme, so we're not going to be kind of marked down to have to just focus on that thing.
Because we can't possibly do that, because we're rubbish.
Terrible at sticking to a plan or a coherent line of conversation.
We're basically saying we might ramble a bit. Might be a bit rambly at times.
We might be rambling right now. So what we would like to do is start off every week with looking at some news articles that we have enjoyed currently in
Best bits of fake news for the past month.
kind of top 5, top 10 of fake news.
Tickled our scrotum a little bit.
Tickled our undercarriage.
And just made us interested. I've got a few down here. First one that I have to kick up with is was Trump's false claim on electoral college votes. In a press conference, he basically said, I guess it was the biggest electoral college win since Ronald Reagan. I got 306. Yeah, it was a really big margin. And one of the reporters was like, okay, Obama got 365 electoral college votes. Donald Trump was like, oh no, I meant Republican, just like Republican presidents. He was like, alright, okay. George W. Bush won 426 when he was going for his second term. He was like, and Donald Trump then just went, I don't know, someone told me this.
Yeah, and I think there's probably, I genuinely think there's a part of that where I don't know if Donald Trump is intentionally lying to people or if he's just reading what he's told and doesn't check or factor. None of this is Donald Trump. This is all...
Okay, but somebody's doing it deliberately.
Intentionally. I mean, and the thing is, they know these numbers. If we're talking about someone from the White House who is operating as a press secretary or press something involved in the press team in any way, shape or form, they have these statistics available to them.
Again, to me, it's down to the soundbite. Trump's there on camera saying it's the biggest electoral college win since Ronald Reagan. You can take that soundbite and play it again and again and again to people. There are people who that's the only piece of information that they'll have paid attention to. That's the piece that will get lifted and used again. And if you keep saying, you can say whatever you want, it basically seems to be the message from this whole Trump campaign. You just say something, doesn't really matter if it's true. And I think it's a deliberate move. I think they're massively inspired by this Vladimir Surkov guy, who's Putin's like right hand man, who's his advisor.
Who we will have an overarching episode on at some point.
At some point.
He's definitely on the list.
But yeah, it was quite a funny one. It tickled me just seeing him kind of make his massively false statement and then kind of go, oh well, no, I meant this. I will not. Right. Well, somebody told me it. I don't know.
So what's weird is I've actually read, I was reading an article today about, so it's about a few things, and so everyone knows we're going to be focusing mostly on immigration and stuff in Britain this week, but yeah, just because this is off the back of what we're talking about there with Trump, so I know that you're aware that Trump has throwing these toys out the pram because Obama has been wiretapping Trump Towers. Are you aware of this?
No.
Right, so this is the new finger on the pulse story in the last 2 days or 3 days. Trump has said outright the Obama administration was wiretapping Trump Towers while they were in the middle of the presidential campaign. So he's not really said why. So he's not said what benefit that's going to bring the guy who's not running against him in any way, shape or form. Yeah. And on top of that, the Obama administration probably was, because he's the president of the United States of America, and you're talking about a standalone businessman who was running to be the opposing party's presidential elect, and you have control of the CIA and the FBI and everything that goes along with it.
Yeah, but he can't just randomly, as president, go, I want to tap this guy. You
Oh,
can't
no,
get
no, I
away
know,
with
I know,
that.
I know,
In
I know
fact- in
technically.
fact,
I know
that's exactly what Nixon got in bother for.
No, I know, but we can also be almost 100%.
Got in bother, by the way. That's what happened. He got right in bother.
Got in bother. Oh, he had a bad couple of weeks. No, but we can go on the assumption that it probably was. Like,
We can't go on an assumption.
No,
of
no,
anything.
you can.
I would
go
say
on
the
assumption
burden of
that
I
the
would say the
president.
burden of proof is on Donald Trump.
Oh no, I would absolutely agree. But what I mean is like in the event it comes out with absolute proof, Obama administration were tapping Trump towers because they wanted to know what was happening coming up to the presidential election. I'm not going to be like shaking. I mean, essentially, when Snowden came out and said, "People, we have been reading your emails that are on the internet," I wasn't like, "Oh fuck, I didn't see that coming." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what I mean is
But what I will say to that is that it was targeted. The stuff that what's the name of that operation?
Prism.
Yeah, Operation Prism. Right. It was targeted. They were looking for keywords. That was they could legitimately claim that it was to protect national security, etc., etc. And it's like when the police are wiretapping phones, they're allowed to listen for a certain amount of seconds, then they have to switch it off if it's non-pertinent.
But you could imagine that the same argument could be put forward to. I don't know how the American.
What? So you think that they think that Trump might have been a terrorist?
No, but they could have been. We were already aware that they're sure that he was interacting with the Russians. Now let's go on the idea that they wanted to make sure that he wasn't interacting with the Russians for a corrupt reason. What I mean is you could easily see a reason that in the event the Obama administration were actually pulled up for this, that they can justify it on the idea that is the president-elect and he has some shady business dealings.
Nah,
I
think that if it is proven, which I very much think
very
it will
much
be,
do, I very much do.
if it is proven, then there would be legal action against the Obama administration. That's the only way that can go.
Oh, there probably would be, but and then you'd probably have like an Ollie North type scenario where some random member of staff and it was their fucking fault, and then Obama walks off.
Falls in their
I mean,
song.
just some
no,
guy.
that was just me.
I was literally
Linda.
fucking hell. Linda shows up.
Linda from accounting.
I'm just here to tap your fucking phones. Like something like a Mission Impossible.
Yeah, we've told her about that shit before.
Linda, she's always tapping phones like a fucking nightmare. So anyway, so he threw his toys out the pram, and kind of off the back of that, there's a video floating about at the present moment in The Guardian of him like losing his shit with his senior advisors, one of which being Steve Bannon, and losing his shit. Big Sean B, and losing his shit, like shouting. There's some pointing. I believe Bannon was shouting and pointing. There was a lot of shouting and pointing in the Oval Office. And then there's a tagline in the side of The Guardian with the Independent. I'll find the article, but it says like Bannon entering the opposite entrance to Air Force One from the president.
They had the lover's tiff? Is that what we're saying?
Well, that's kind of how they were setting it up.
Well, that's it. I'm going in a different door from you.
But and then at the bottom of it also says in like right small writing, it's just like, this happens quite regularly.
Yeah, this is the door he always goes in.
The president kind of goes through the main door and that, and like a lot of his staff goes in the back door because that's how it works. So in fact, the fact that they focused on this, I mean, 6 times.
So that's fake news.
6 times in the article, I read that Bannon entered the back entrance to the aircraft rather than the front entrance with Trump.
And then like the last slide of that was,
and a ham's on the time. It's totally irrelevant.
We've just said it 6 times though.
They never said it underneath any of the pictures that they showed you, like the 3 pictures that they showed you of Bannon entering an aircraft, which by the way just looks like a shady man entering the back of an aircraft. It could be any shady man entering the back of any aircraft. But yeah, so that was that's what I was literally reading today, and it was mostly on the fact that it was all shaped around Obama, not about Trump being annoyed, because just after this meeting was when Trump came out and said via a tweet that the Obama administration had been wiretapping, almost as if it was set up. Like the video was kind of being suggested that was the argument where they were just like, well, do you know what? Obama was tapping your telephones. Trump blew up. What fuck, man? You're not coming on holiday with me to Florida, because actually it did say like you're not coming. He told 2 of his staff members they're not coming on Air Force One with him to some place in Florida. Like that's
what because they were supposed to know that Obama was wiretapping his phone,
because it was like, I was running with yous, and it was before I was president, and like I have security in Trump Tower, and somehow it's your fault. Like and the wife was there, whatever Trump her name is, which I'm going to actually do a bit on her at one point in one of the episodes because she like speaks like six.
Melania.
Aye man, she like speaks like 6 languages and shit. Like she's no stupid by any manner of means. In fact,
Well,
she's incredibly clever.
I would suggest there's something that's a bit stupid about her, or she's just a gold digger. Who knows? So one of the other things that tickled my fancy in the past month was Wikipedia banning the Daily Mail as a reference source due to unreliability. Thought that was quite interesting.
That's hilarious.
The editors ruled out the publisher as a reference due to a quote reputation for poor fact checking and sensationalism.
So to understand, me and one of our good friends updated Wikipedia's Slipknot page, I believe, to say that they were like a folk band, and it was there for weeks without
folk do it all the time.
without being deleted. But yet, I am more reputable than the Daily Mail as far as Wikipedia, and I mean that's saying something because we were wrecked.
The editors asked for volunteers to review about 12,000 links and replace them with alternative sources where possible. So I don't know how that works. I don't know if they can't find another source for it, they just go, oh well, it's bullshit, I'll just remove that information because it has only appeared in the Daily Mail. Seems a little bit unfair to me personally. Like the Mail spokesman actually said, for the record, the Daily Mail banned its reporters from using Wikipedia as a single source back in 2014 because they considered Wikipedia to be unreliable. And yeah, I mean, not a big fan of the Daily Mail, but they made the point that last year the Daily Mail and the Mail Online between them published over 500,000 stories and only two upheld adjudications for inaccuracy from IPSO, which is like the UK press industry regulator. So yeah, but I would also suggest that I've read quite a number of Daily Mail articles that I've then looked into and found them to be kind of false, some of which we'll be speaking about today.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to just say on that don't use the Daily Mail or Wikipedia as your main source.
As a sole source.
Because both of them, but one of them is crowd inputted, it's public.
Crowdsourced, yeah.
Kind of crowdsourced information, and it's absolutely certainly not the best way to get it. Yeah, I said if it says
it's the best way to fall down a rabbit hole of like
madness,
just going. Oh, I'm quite interested in like the population of Germany, and then like this particular place of Germany, and the next thing you've like 12 clicks later, you're reading about how to breed small gophers for making barley.
I was reading about how big the universe was because I was curious with it expanding and I was talking to an Israeli science
Were
teacher.
you looking for like a football pitches kind of
how many bags of sugar is the universe?
Yeah.
And I was looking through that and I ended up sitting, pickling my head, trying to understand quantum physics for about 4 hours until I realised that all I wanted to know was, how big roughly they think the universe currently is because I had been talking to, and it was an Israeli scientist, one of the guys in one of the universities I was sending emails about because I used to do things like that. And I ended up trying to understand, so we're clear, understanding quantum physics just after lunch.
Quite hard.
Just after lunch when you're meant to be working is in no way, shape or form the way to fucking do the way to go.
I've got a spare half hour. I'm going to see if I can understand quantum physics.
This is it. Coming out the room, it's just like, have you had a look at those systems that are a problem? I don't even fucking know who I am anymore.
Sounds like quite a good way to ground yourself about, now sometimes you can be a little bit overconfident in your own intelligence and ability. Trying to learn quantum physics in half an hour will sort that right out.
Teaches the shit at you. It's just like, well, do you know what? You knew nothing, and the things that you thought you knew, you don't know.
What not? So it's like Schrodinger's cat kind of stuff where you can't measure the actual state of a particle, and if you try to measure the state of a particle, you're actually changing the state of the particle.
I mean, without getting too much into it, but you've got things like perceiving it. For me to look at to look at a beam of light changes what state the beam of light's in. So the beam of light can shine, and it can shine at point A. Now for me to look and perceive it shining at point A, it actually will always shine at point C. But if there's no one looking at it and it's not being perceived, it's always shining at point A.
Heisenberg's uncertainty theorem. Was it Heisenberg?
Yeah, the guy from Breaking Bad.
But I'm actually more thinking of
I know,
Bill Bailey sketch. But yeah, it's the guy who named
yeah,
himself
yeah,
after.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But so when you're trying to understand perceiving molecules and atoms when you've just had your lunch and you're probably meant to be working, it's not.
Luckily, fake news is much easier to perceive.
Much easier.
Much
easier. It's always fake.
You can almost definitely do it in half an hour.
But if you don't perceive it, then it's not fake. So it's quite like quantum theory.
So yeah, the third and kind of the most galling one for me that I was looking at this month was BBC Newsnight had a guy on talking about the NHS, totally getting torn into it, talking about how it should be privatised. He was a dude, he's like a cancer specialist, right? His name's Dr. Karol Sikora, and that's how he was introduced, basically, on the BBC Newsnight programme. Here's Dr. Karol Sikora. He's going to talk about the NHS, and he called it the last bastion of communism. He spoke about how they definitely needed to be privatised, how it was a lovely idea back in the day, but how it doesn't work, it's broken, it's unfixable, basically, is his exact kind of words. There's nothing that we could possibly do to make it any better, apart from privatising it, right? Now, I am not suggesting for a second that we should not have space for dissenting voices on any subject on the BBC or any news programme. You should present facts from one side, from somebody's point of view. You should present them from this other dude's point of view as well. What you should be doing though is declaring, you should be making sure that we know where this information is coming from, right? And what they didn't do is declare that this Dr. Karol Sikora, cancer specialist, has massive private interests in a private medical firm, massive financial interests in them. So he seeks to gain from privatising the NHS. He's actually the medical director at a private health firm called Proton Partners Limited, who are based in the Bahamas, tax haven. He's previously took part in Republican adverts that were anti-NHS, trying to get rid of Obamacare. And should the BBC basically be using itself as a political lobbying fucking group?
Well, see, it's weird because actually on that, and another bit that's kind of relevant to him speaking, so as you're aware, my background has been in healthcare for quite a long time in different scenarios and stuff like that. When I worked for a private company, there was a member of the board in the private company who was also an advisor to David Cameron regarding whether or not the NHS was viable or whether or not it should go private. Now, there's an argument, a man on the board like a big private healthcare company probably has the opinion that the NHS should go private.
Nah, surely he was really pro,
I love the NHS. We should give it more money and we should fucking fund it to death because this is the lifeblood of the UK.
Hey, listen, I'm looking for some advice on privatising the NHS. Yeah, you should do that. You should totally do that. Thanks, David.
Thanks, private NHS man. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's what I was getting with that there though is that the current Tory government in the UK seek and use advisors.
Oh, they totally want to privatise.
who want to privatise. I mean that's now what I will say from someone who has operated in various bits of the NHS, there is a massive.
There's large swathes of it which essentially are privatised.
But there was also the things that he was saying were intrinsically true. Right, so the waiting time and the way it's managed and the way it's been dealt with and the way that money's being spent and all those type of things are actually at fault.
And they're an endemic issue. But to suggest that the only way to fix them is to privatise it is bollocks. Because to suggest that by privatising it, it's automatically going to fix those problems is nonsense. I've worked for lots of private firms which are massively mismanaged and have far too many. One of the big things that's thrown at the NHS is the level of bureaucracy involved, departments not talking to each other, too many mid to upper management jobs and not enough people on the ground, too many chiefs, not enough Indians, all that kind of stuff. That exists in lots of other industries which are entirely privatised. So to suggest that privatising is going to fix that is bullshit. Secondly, there's other options within the the current situation where it's owned by the public, we could just manage it better. You know what I mean?
Oh, management is certainly the problem, but I mean, like, so I can be in a department right now for work, and there is a manager, and that manager has a manager who's working under him, and that manager has two managers that is working under him, and those two managers have then got four managers working under them, and so far we have only touched the administration staff that are in that building, so that's not anyone who's doing what would be based as clinical work. So you're at this weird point where you're talking to people and you have like, so that's like 8 managers before you've got to anyone who is line managing anyone who is doing anything that would be classed as clinical. That's just, and they're lovely people, and the off chance that they're listening to this and they know who I'm talking about for various bits of work, like, they are a delight, but at the same time they're fucking timekeepers and fucking bookkeepers, and there's a management structure that just means that, you know, they're all going to be on band 5 wages, you know what I mean? So they're all in of above 30 grand a year, so you're then paying 8 people in a room to do a job that, in the nicest possible way in 2017, computers can be doing it. And for the most part, they really can. And that requires investment. But how many years do you pay for these members of staff before then the investment breaks even?
It pays for itself.
So there is like an endemic problem within the NHS where you've got, I mean, even when I was doing other work directly for the NHS rather than working with a third party company, I was in there and I would be in a room and I could watch people not take ownership of a problem, like 15, 20 managers in a room, and just like, well, that's not my problem.
That's fine. But the essential crux of what I'm saying is, this guy should not be given airtime on a nationally owned, television corporation to basically push his political ideas across without even having to declare what his interests are. That to me is so wrong, so terrifying that's even been allowed to happen. Like, you really need to ask. I've always been a massive kind of, I'm not always actually, up until the independence referendum, I was a massive proponent of the BBC. I always defended it, you know, the fact that it was like kind of, you know, offering us unbiased news.
It was the NHS. It was the NHS for news.
Wasn't beholden to advertisers, all of those things. But when they're giving guys like this space to promote their views without even at the very least having to declare his interests, it's totally wrong. Also, this is also worth noting. Imperial College London have had to take legal action against this. What's his name? Carl Sikora. Yeah, Carl Sikora, same guy. They had to take legal action against him because he repeatedly kept saying that he had an honorary professorship from Imperial College London, and he doesn't.
He doesn't. Right, so he's a liar.
Yeah, so like, all I'm saying is maybe don't listen to everything he has to say.
I mean, the thing is, so, like I said, there's things that you said which I agree with on the most basic term about the way that certain organisation and stuff like that is happening, the waiting times, the problems with that. I am not taking that away. What I will say is like, I watched the video, the way it was presented like you've brought in like the most important and relevant person to talk about that subject, and it was framed in such a way in a kind of dimly lit room, in a weird kind of, this is the most knowledgeable person on this subject.
We'll put the link up.
Yes, yeah, we'll provide the link. But yeah, essentially it was presented in such a way that said, this is the man who knows about this. This is a guy who is aware of how things will be. This is what he's got to say. And didn't even need to be against anybody. Like, I mean, like, there wasn't like the other side of the argument. There wasn't like, you know, I would have liked to have seen some kind of portly nurse, like some fucking midwife or some person who was like what they called, a ward matron type person who was there and who was angry and who pointed out that the nurses work like fuck and the doctors work like fuck, and it's not to do with the way that it's not to do with the money or anything. It's to do with just,
well, also maybe if they pointed out the fact that if his private firm was actually paying tax, then they'd have more money.
Well, see, yeah, I mean, you've got things like that, and I would like to say that I can't 100% guarantee his private company isn't paying some tax. They're in the Bahamas, so they're not paying all the tax that they should be paying, but I would imagine that they're avoiding it. But
there's a reason why they call it a tax haven.
But we've not looked into what tax they're paying, is all I'm saying. Do you know what I mean?
No,
so we can't guarantee it. But yeah, I mean, not just him. Companies like him. If there was lots of other companies paying tax, I mean, the other thing is there's a lot of
Starbucks, Amazon,
just to name a few, Apple.
Yeah. Google.
Unreliable. They've got
Oh, it's a fact.
I know, but they've got really good lawyers. All the people that we just listed there.
I'm sure they're not
Can we not
listening.
just list other people that we can't guarantee? You know, like Argos and the
I'm sure.
NASA.
I think it's more liable to suggest that Argus have bad lawyers than it is to suggest that Starbucks
Amazon
and
don't
Google
pay
already paid their tax.
Aye, probably. But yeah, I mean, he wasn't. There wasn't someone there to fight the case of, you know.
The opposite view.
They shut down A&Es and there's not enough hospitals for the amount of people, and this kind of actually brilliantly segues into immigration, all the things that go along with it. You now have less hospitals per capita than you had before because you closed down hospitals because the hospitals aren't busy enough. But you have two hospitals and one hospital is operating at 75% capacity and one hospital is operating at 50% capacity. You shut down the 50% capacity. That then means that the hospital that's taking the strain is running at 125% capacity.
Well, not necessarily, because it depends on the size of the hospital. But,
yeah, but what I mean is
it's
having to take on that 50% of that. Presuming the two hospitals are roughly the same size,
yeah.
Right? So, I mean, yes, granted, in the event one hospital could only deal with 1,000 people and one hospital could deal with 50,000 people,
then we're fine.
And then everything's okay. What's the fucking problem?
Why have they even got that fucking tiny hospital?
Weird shed that they've got, like hospital written on paint, roughly painted on the side. But yeah, I mean, so, and that, like I said, so that kind of does bring us nicely onto immigration and kind of the stuff that that we've been looking at over the last couple of days.
Yeah. So coming up in part 2.
in part 2, yes, that's where we're going to move forward from. And we're back. I know that felt like no time for you, but it was fucking ages at our end. Absolutely ages. But anyway, we're
Decades,
back.
Eons.
Yep. So, one of the first things that I wanted to talk about, one of the sources for a lot of things that you'll find on the internet is there's a website called Migration Watch.
MigrationWatchUK.org.
MigrationWatchUK.org. I've been looking at them today. Weirdly, if you look at migration statistics in the UK, they are the first people that come up when I Google it, so they actually come before the government regarding statistics.
Yeah, they come before ONS, Office for National Statistics.
Yeah, so they actually before anyone there. That's the first link. So say you're, I don't know, like lazy as shit or shite at using the internet, the first thing you're going to do is click the first link. Now that's the first link below sponsored ads because no one looks at sponsored ads. No. I'm really like,
unless I'm an idiot.
Yeah, and there's a high probability that they're in sponsored ads, but I didn't even fucking look because I don't check sponsored ads.
Presumably they've paid to be first.
Oh, anyway. Well, I'd imagine so. I mean, they probably do meet a lot of criteria and a lot of buzzwords, a lot of keywords for searching and optimization and stuff like that anyway. But yeah, there's probably a fucking page at the background. I can't prove this at all, but there's a page at the background that's got like loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of the keywords that you'll use for Google hits. So then it means that you're populating your page with the words that you want to be having for moving forward. That's one of the ways that you optimize. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Point being, they're there and they're at the top. So when you look down their information, what you see is they have a graph, and the graph shows from 1996 or thereabouts right up to the current day, and that graph shows that there was a spike in immigration from about 1996 to say 2004, where it kind of evened out a little bit, and then went to about 2007 where it plateaued for about the last almost 10 years, but in the last 3 years there was a drop and then there's an increase, and that's what the graph shows. And the graph gives you another option, which is run your own graph, and here's all your variables, and then it gives you different areas of the EU, for example, so EU group 8 or EU group 4 or EU group 10 and stuff like that, and it lets you say, how many people immigrated to the UK between this time and this time from EU group 8, which in this case is like
Poland, Czech Republic, Slovenia, Hungary, all of them.
People who joined around the 2003-2004 area. I believe they all joined at the same time under the expansion of the EU. And that actually only gives you results up to 2004, which was in the growth period. The problem with that is it then doesn't it then doesn't show you when it plateaus. Essentially, now if I want to see how many Polish people came, or I say Polish people, but how many people who fall under that whole kind of Eastern Europe, but not the Eastern Bloc area of Europe, how many people came to the UK in that time frame, there's a massive run from 1996 to 2004 because the graph shows that's when people came. At the point that they joined the EU, they don't have that information, even though they clearly do have that information, because we could find that information and we were able to find it when we were looking at some other things. So the information is available, but they're choosing not to give it. My opinion on choosing not to give it is that when it starts to plateau out, it's much less shocking as a piece of information. I mean, again, the other one is I want to say EU10, but I'll put all this information.
I think it's EU15, EU8, EU2. EU2 is Poland and Romania. Sorry, Bulgaria and Romania. EU8 is the ones we just mentioned. EU15, I think, is like the original kind of roughly, or like, you know, the kind of longer term Western European members, I believe. I would need to look into it again.
I mean, well, on the choices though, the other one that you can choose, that you can run the graph, actually their numbers finish about 2007, 2008, which again is when all these numbers start to plateau, and it's less shocking information. Like, you know, if the population didn't increase, if immigration wasn't increasing for the next 5 or 6 years, what is the point in them showing you that? The danger there is obviously that the graphs are then skewed. I can produce a graph that shows that for nearly 10 years, people from Poland were coming here, and there were more coming every single year. But I can only, from their website, I can only pull information that shows you up to 2004. That then means that if I've used that as a source, my source will always show that the immigration has went up. But then it only went up again from 2004 to 2007, where it plateaued until like 2014.
So when you create that graph, does it make it clear that it only goes up to that point?
Well, it makes it clear that that's where the graph finishes. You know the way that, you know, a graph finishes?
Yeah.
But so you're running the numbers, and you can only run the numbers up to, and I mean, it clearly states you can only run the numbers up to 2004, or in the other case like 2007. When you're actually running it, there is a disclaimer before you run the graph. The problem is obviously that you're then feeding information, which is, I mean, if you're on Migration Watch UK, there is a high probability you're not.
You want to watch migration?
you want to watch it.
Maybe you've got there accidentally. You're just like really into like bird watching and stuff like that.
It might be.
Bill Oddie, you'd be looking to see when like the red-billed tithawk is going to be in town.
I love your hand gesture for tithawk. You'll never see that.
So you've ended up on Migration Watch UK, and then you found out it's all about all these bloody pesky foreigners. I don't want to know about this shit.
It's great as well. They've got some tagline that's just like. Hate immigration, love immigrants, or something. It's fucking. It's no far off it.
I thought you were going to say something like we would have got away with it if it wasn't for those pesky foreigners.
I mean, it may as well been something like that. It's the problem is it doesn't actually show you on the mobile phone version of the website, which is really infuriating, because it is some mad line like. We're not fond of immigration, but quite fond of immigrants.
Well, it's like that American one, what CIS or whatever, the Centre for Immigration Studies. What's theirs? Theirs is like
low immigration, pro immigrants.
Low immigration, pro immigrants.
We're all for immigrants as long as there's no fucking loads of them. But I mean,
we're all for a couple of immigrants.
I mean, we'll certainly go back to the Centre for Immigration Studies, because CIS is owned by John Tanto and Joe Tontanto. I mean, someone who quite clearly has a Native American surname and fucking hates immigrants, even though.
This is how we got on a look. We were looking at Migration Watch UK. That led us to, well, you know, who's the guy behind? Who are the people behind Migration Watch UK? We should look into that when we can maybe try and figure out, you know, what they're trying to push forward. And we found Sir Andrew Green, actually Lord Green of Deddington.
Lord Green of Deddington. He does have a lordship. He was also one of our delegates or
He
ambassadors.
was a British ambassador to Saudi.
Yeah. So obviously he's the type of person you want as a lord, because someone who has connections to anything going on in Saudi is the type of person you want to be making decisions ever in your country.
And in fairness, he has also been he was the chairman of a charity, a British charity called Aid to Palestine.
Palestinian Aid Fund of some description.
For giving money to Palestinians both in Palestine or on the Gaza Strip and in refugee camps and stuff like that, try to look after them. So
he's annoyingly not as bad as I want him to be. Like, and I still think that that's all up front, because he also does Migration Watch. You know what I mean? Now,
but this is the thing, right? We went into it looking at there's quite a lot of selective information on Migration Watch, right? So we're like, and reading about him, you kind of quickly discover that they're basically kind of a anti-immigration lobbying group. They've been involved in this for I think they first come on the scene in 2002. He's written lots of articles in the Express, the Mail. At one point, in one of the things I read, they were saying that he was quoted in the Daily Express once a week for the last 10 years as a source of information. So
actually, just on that, he also done an article which was essentially pro-Saudi. It was pro. The whole article was shaped as the things that are happening in the Middle East and stuff, but essentially it was, we need to have the business in Saudi because it's worthwhile for 50% of the world's oil, or 25% of the world's oil, or whatever the number that he had deemed, and also selling weapons to them. I mean, that's essentially what he says in the article.
And chopping kids' hands off isn't that bad.
It means you can retrofit them with the guns that you're selling them, so they've got guns instead of hands.
Like Ash for the Walking Dead.
I can only presume that that's the regime's plan.
Fair enough, I don't see the problem with that. So we looked into it. We looked into what they were, and I came across an article from August 2002. It was in the Independent. It was an editorial in the Independent actually, and they were calling them a nasty little group playing an old unwelcome trick. They said that they were a pressure group with a distinctly unpleasant agenda. And the reason for this is because they had made a statement in 2002 that there would be 2 million migrants into the UK in the next decade.
Now, when we read that, I wanted it to be true. I can't begin to not the amount of people that were migrating in, but I wanted them to be a hate group. I really did, because they have information on their website that, in my opinion, isn't wrong. And this is the big part of fake news with them. It's not wrong. It's just tailored. It's designed in such a way that it gives you the right type of bad information, so it can back to the Facebook circle jerk, you can read it and you can be like, that's exactly what I wanted to read. Fucking immigrants are coming over here and stealing jobs and shit like that.
But also, conversely, we wanted them to be big baddies who were political lobbying for anti-immigration because it was wrong.
Lord Green of Deadville, or whatever his name is. I wanted him to be the baddie. That made life easy for me to do
Lord
this.
Green of Deadington, typecast bad guy.
Lord Green Deadington worked with the Saudis. Was the perfect type of baddie.
Bond villain.
Absolutely. And also has some charity work that he does just so people aren't on to the fact that he lives in a volcano layer.
Why are you pals with the Saudis? But I also love Palestinians.
I love Palestinians.
And then I'm really confused. Anyway, so basically in 2002, when he made this bold as fuck claim that there would be 2 million migrants in the next decade, it was rubbished in the media, especially in the sort of liberal left-wing media, because it was 4 times higher. That would have been 4 times higher than from 1992 to 2002.
Yeah, the previous decade was like 500,000 people or something.
Yeah,
something like that.
Net migrants over the 10 years, so they were like, no fucking way, not going to happen. So we were like, well, how many migrants actually did come into the UK between 2002 and 2011? And when you look at the data, 2,021,000.
So the reason that that's very relevant is, as a rule, with the statistics of immigration.
ONS.
Yeah.
they would state that
30,000 plus or minus.
30,000 plus or minus is the accuracy level of all our kind of data. So
fundamentally, if you look at it from him being 30,000 over, it was actually on the fucking nose almost to the person that had came in over 10 years.
Yeah, and basically, you know, it was rubbished by the media for saying there'll be 2 million. It was Migration Watch UK who actually put this number out. There'll be 2 million in the next decade migrants into the UK, and everybody went, it's either a hate group, they're this, they're that, Baden Powell kind of stuff, blood in the streets. But yeah, you have to hand it to the guy. He fucking knew what he was talking about.
Now, there is an argument that the way that he framed it is the 2 million people is a problem.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I mean, there's that side of things. So I mean, like, I would like to, like, all I mean is like, even though fair play, they get the numbers right, and the numbers were correct.
But yeah, and if you look on the basis of like the way that the migrationwatch.org website is set out, they don't pass any comment on whether net migration into the UK being up is a good or a bad thing. They just point to the fact that it's true.
There is undertones though. I mean, there is, certainly when you read it, there's undertones. Like I said, like, I mean, you're looking at the graphics that they're providing, the graphics that they're providing fit very, very specific. Like, they never focus on the drop in immigration in 2014, and we know what were the reasons that there was a drop in immigration in 2014. I mean, they don't focus on what the increased immigration is from 2014 now.
They focus on the fact that it's trended upwards for a long time. And
trending upwards is something that we can expect across the board. I mean, essentially, in every country, for the most part, across the whole of the world at the present moment, the amount of births are going up, the population of the world is going up. You can only
that doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to be moving from one place to another.
No, it doesn't. But what it means is that there's more people available to, and there has been consistently more people available to for the last 10 years or 15 years. So because the population is always going up, there's always going to be more people. So as long as it's a steady growth, and as long as the UK can provide for that growth, then that means that it's not really a problem. Like, the same way that you expect everyone's wages to go up because it will take into account inflation, you expect there to be more people but more jobs because more people need more things, and if more people need more things, then there's going to be more jobs to produce them, sell them, and everything that goes along with it.
We want to be making more stuff, we want to be employing more people, all that kind of thing.
Precisely. So actually, on the amount of people that are in the UK, if you take, for example, in 2013, 2014, and again, I'll provide all the sources for this, but at that point, there was 712,000 people who had became pension age, essentially 65 or thereabouts. It was the baby boomers, their first year or thereabouts, in 1946, so just after the Second World War. They were now in a scenario where they were at pension age. Now that's 712 people. On average, there's
712,000 people.
Yeah, 712,000 people. Sorry, but I was just looking at the first numbers here. So, but on average, you're looking at just over 600,000 people are born every year in the UK currently, that's trending. Right. And you're saying that if there's 2 million people over 10 years, roughly 200,000 people are coming. So that then means actually that you've got 712,000 people retiring, but
only 600,000 people coming.
Or say the trend has been the same. Now we know that it's actually increasing, so it probably have been less than that 16 years ago. But go on the idea with the numbers that we have right now, that there's 600,000 plus people that are turning 16 and ready for work.
Not all of them will be going to work either. Some of them will be
granted,
going to further education and whatever.
Granted,
so
but let's
perhaps even more of a deficit.
But even let's presume that all of them were going to work at 16.
Yeah.
That then means that if you add the immigrants onto that list, there's only then the need for an extra 100,000 jobs across the whole of the UK, because
a lot of the migrants will be students as well.
Yeah, I mean, so there is a lot of variables, but we're using it in peak numbers, and absolute peak numbers, it then means that there's an extra 100,000 jobs needed. If there's only an extra 100,000 jobs needed across the whole of the UK, and you presume that business is growing in the UK because that is the current trend for businesses worldwide, essentially, that businesses are getting bigger and stronger and moving forward and providing for more people, you would then presume that those extra people that are coming into the UK are technically not a problem. I mean, they're not an issue providing they're working.
Also, yeah, but if there's a deficit of 100,000 jobs isn't that a little bit of a problem because you need to create the jobs for these people? Just playing devil's advocate.
Oh, absolutely, and I can see what you're saying, but then, as we said, that deficit of 100,000 jobs doesn't take into account students and people who are staying on through high school and people who are leaving the country, because we've obviously got people from that list who are 16 who are leaving the country and stuff. So there's a lot of variance there, and I'd imagine that you'd probably be looking at something closer to half of that.
And deaths and stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean...
And you're also, like, 100,000 in terms of population, I'm not even 100% sure that 100,000 more jobs a year is statistically significant.
Well, here's a thought.
In a country of 65 million people.
Here's something that I discovered today that I think is quite relevant. I was reading over some stuff from a university professor, I believe possibly one of the London universities, UCL. Anyway, that professor said that he's been studying population growth, immigration and the likes since 1960s. And in the 1960s, they were looking at the current growth, so the growth by the year 2000, so not even where we are at the present moment, for the population in the UK to be 80 million people.
Aye, that's what they were predicting.
That was what they had looked at. That is the scale that they
based
thought.
On the birth rates at that time and stuff.
Yeah, so I mean they had contingency.
It was the
plans.
60s. It was free love. They thought
It
it
was
was going to be this
literally
mad
shagging their way through the fucking 60s and the 70s. Then there was like coke in the 80s, so they were like double timing shagging, not double team shagging, but double timing shagging.
Double timing.
Nah,
Just took them longer.
Like just that, yeah, or you
They
know,
were all
like,
numbed up.
yeah, you fucking fair. But anyway, that happened in the 80s, and yeah, so that's where they thought they were going to be. I mean, they probably didn't know there was going to be quite as many drugs in the 70s and 80s. But on the drugs is the problem. So what happened was the pill was created. Because the pill was created, it then meant that people didn't have... So we're clear, the shagging rate did not go down. There was just less people having babies.
Anything maybe went up a bit.
It
They were
did.
like, what, no babies?
All over it, like a dog eating beetroot. But aye, there was certainly a scenario where that's where they thought they would be at. They thought they'd be at 80 million. They had looked at places like Swindon and Milton Keynes. They had looked at what that was going to mean for them. You know,
Nothing good.
so we're clear. If your plan is Swindon and Milton Keynes, and your plan is
That's probably why people stop making babies and they're like, what? We're going to send them all like Swindon and Milton Keynes. I'm not allowed to say that because I was born like Swindon way anyway.
and I'm allowed to say that because I fucking hate Milton Keynes.
And can't you tell by my accent?
He does sound Swindonian. I don't even know if that's the right terminology for it.
If it isn't, it should be.
Right, we'll go with that. But yes, so certainly that's where they thought they were going to be. And that's what they were looking at, and that's what their estimates were at. So we're actually currently in a society right now that is a lot smaller than they thought it was going to be when they were making plans in the 60s.
And yet we're told that there's not enough room for the
There's not enough room, yeah. There's not enough room. There's not enough jobs.
There's not enough room for 200,000 net migrants every year in a population of 65 million. But that would still, if nothing else happened, if there was just 200,000 extra people coming in every year, we'd still be talking like, what, 20, 30 more than that before we were up near 8
with current birth rate in the UK at the present moment trends, and then if you add the 200,000 people, say that the trend is still there, that's how many people it's going to be every year.
I'm saying from say there's 65 million flat, right, and there's just always going to be 65 million people every year, and then you're putting 200,000 a year on top of that. That's like a million every 5 years. In fact, it would take so.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You can't do that.
No,
These
you
numbers.
can't do that.
No, what I'm saying is if you add births on it, you then can. If you then say births, so there's 600 and whatever thousand births. If you add the 200 onto that, that's still 800,000. Call it 900,000.
Well, how many deaths is there?
Well, I've absolutely no idea. I've only checked births, but that's 900,000. So you'd still be in the next 20 years before we were hitting the figure that they thought they were going to be at.
We have an aging population as well, so I think
We have an Asian population.
Aging.
All right, cool.
We have an Asian population.
There you go. I was just checking. I didn't know if that was relevant to the.
They're obviously all immigrants.
Obviously, we did absolutely.
This isn't Asia.
This isn't Asia.
I swear.
That's what they say.
Anyway, yeah. So it would still. We have an aging population though, so certainly in Scotland the death rate far outweighs the birth rate. So we have a specific requirement whereby we need young working immigrants to come into Scotland to support the economy and keep it going. So the whole kind of Brexit thing and putting tougher regulations, etc., on immigration to Scotland is actually a massive economic problem for us.
Well, actually, and I'm kind of glad that you brought up the economic problem with relation to Brexit and the way that things are, because one of the other things that I was reading about today was Belfast. Belfast in Northern Ireland in general has got a big problem at the present moment because of the whole Brexit thing, because of immigration, specifically because of immigration.
Because of the whole political situation.
Well, yeah, but essentially...
We're probably better.
That's an entirely different show, but essentially on the most basic term, with immigration, the problem that they've got is, currently if I live in Belfast and I want to go to Dublin, I drive from Belfast to Dublin, I do that, it's the one place.
Yeah.
Once Brexit happens...
Well, it's not the one place, but they have like a soft border.
Yeah. It's not really dramatically different from driving from Scotland to England.
No, it's not. I've done it many times. It's not different at all. Apart from the road markings change and it goes through like miles to kilometres, and then you get Gaelic.
Well, so it gets mental. It's like driving to Inverness, because it does the same up in Inverness as well.
You know like Gaelic on the roadsides in Inverness?
Aye.
I've never been in Inverness.
Oh, it's not Gaelic, it's Gaelic, isn't it? But yeah, I mean you do. Essentially, when you start to drive up, all the road signs are in Gaelic at the bottom, and then when you get up to Inverness, they then switch.
Does it go like kilometres though? Does it?
No. But it still goes to gibberish. I mean, like, and then you have to question everything that you're fucking reading on roads. Anyway, that's a different problem. But yeah, what they're saying is because one will be in the EU and one won't be in the EU. It's the only place in the fucking UK that shares a border with an EU country. So they're actually going to have to build a wall.
Scotland gets to stay in.
Yeah, but they have to build a wall or a fence. They have to have immigration control.
They don't, surely we're not going down Trumpy territory.
No, but they have to, because they have to have immigration control. You can't have free borders because one country's in the EU and one country's not in the EU. They have to have immigration control between going in and out of the EU. This question has never been answered by Theresa May's cabinet at all, or by Theresa May, even during the Brexit and after it.
You mean like all the other questions about Brexit?
Yeah, I know, but of all the questions about Brexit, this is actually one that could create such an issue, because once you put a wall between Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, you're creating a segregation between Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland that literally the last fucking 400 years have been trying to get rid of. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, some people have.
Yes, but in the grand scheme of things, when the peace treaties and stuff were signed, essentially there was a scenario where it was never perceived that there would be a unified Ireland at any point. But now there's people talking about, there's people who work for The Guardian and The Independent who write for them, who are Irish, who are talking about the fact that, and I've got an article that I'll put up as well, but they're talking about the fact that there could be a unified Ireland in their lifetime, not so much if it could happen, but when it's going to happen.
The Republican vote in Ireland, well, like, example, just in the last 10 months or whatever, between the last election and the new election they just called,
one seat.
Nationalist vote went up. It went up by a significant percentage of the vote as well.
One seat difference between them now, between the Unionists and Sinn Féin.
Yeah.
So the difference is now, like, so from somewhere that held, and I mean, I can't get into stress it, and we'll go back to Britain in a second, but they held, that was a Unionist vote, and there's now one seat difference between them because there's stuff that's happened, like, they were funding, so they were getting money from the EU to fund Catholic Protestant kind of social events, reasons for the Catholic and Protestants to be working together.
Cross community.
Yeah, they did call it something like a cross community. I'll find the words for it. It doesn't really matter. The point is they were getting funded for that. They were also being funded for Gaelic speaking, and that all got pulled. And what that done was that then meant that people who are on the Unionist side but spoke Gaelic are asking why are they not being represented, like why in their country are they being segregated and the funding's being pulled from that, because there's no contingency from the British government. But the only kind of reason that I was getting to that was just to understand that what Brexit means with regard to immigration in a country that is part of our country. There is immigration that would be a border-based immigration they would have to set up.
But this is the thing that cracks me up, is that, you know, Theresa May's government, the Tories at the moment, are acting as if that's not a problem, whereas when Scotland wanted to become an independent, one of the main things they kept going on about was, you'll have to have a border and that'll be a problem, whereas now, don't worry about it, it's not going to be a problem, you know. So there's a clear example of just picking what information you want to put out there.
I mean, probably one of the reasons that they're trying their hardest to not touch it and not go on it is because I do firmly believe that in the event Northern Ireland do go independent, it will only bolster for Scotland to run their second independence referendum. I mean, like in the event Ireland talk about it in actual terms, it'll probably mean Scotland go for it, because literally everyone on earth, or certainly anyone with Irish heritage, doesn't believe that they would ever see a unified Ireland. Like, it's just not a thing that was ever going to ever occur, and it's now something that people are actually talking about. But we should probably actually get back to immigrants. And
well, that's kind of I mean, the reason that we personally have a bit of an active interest in Northern Irish politics is because our predecessors immigrated here from there.
Yeah, we are children of immigrants. They immigrated. They moved to Barrafurnace, and it's where they landed, or where they went first. And then they moved up to here, and they worked in steel for the most part. They worked in engineering, and that's what they done as Irish settlers. And that's 50% of our, well, 50% certainly of my DNA is from there. Jerry's actually a bit more of an immigrant than me because.
Well, yeah, my granddad was Italian. My great grandmother was Maltese. Yeah, so yeah, I've got Irish, English, Scottish, Italian, Maltese blood.
He's like a mutt or something. Aye, man, he's. Nothing you can do about that.
But I still, despite all of that, I don't think that you can ever have completely uncontrolled immigration into any country. Like, you couldn't just have a free for all and say everybody come here. It has to be regulated in some way.
I would agree you have to have some form of regulation, but I don't think that our regulation is doing particularly bad at the moment. In fact, I would say that one of the problems we've got is our current way of regulating immigrants coming in to do with our kind of, I don't know what we'll call them, halfway houses, but essentially our immigration holding pens, what are fundamentally prisons. I mean, let's not really dress the scenario. People can be there for a year at a time without any explanation or without knowing when they're going to be let out. It's, on the most basic term, it's a prison, and you can't work there.
Yeah, well, you can't work if you're a asylum seeker.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but those people are not being managed correctly. I mean, well, they're currently costing us more money than much more money. I mean, there's the statistics that I was reading, and granted they're always from a couple of years ago because they have to be cleaned up and sanitised by the government, but the statistics that I was reading...
Also, it just takes a bit of time to
you're talking about 210 to 260 people are in one of these holding places for a year. That means that because they work it out as roughly about £30,000 per head, that's what it costs to keep them there and keep them maintained. That means that we're paying, like, we, the British taxpayer, are paying £6.5 million for you to have, like, so £6.5 million are being paid for us to keep people from getting a job. And even when you look at those the statistics and figures for coming out of there, essentially it's accepted that anyone who comes out of these places gets a job. They don't go underground, they don't disappear off the radar. They usually wait for their request for them to have either citizenship or at least recognised as an asylum seeker to come through, so they can go ahead and they can work and they can pay tax.
But in the defence, again, playing devil's advocate, in the defence of the government, if they didn't do like thorough screening on people who were coming out of the country and claiming asylum, just letting them walk the streets, and then one of them did something horrific, committed a terrorist atrocity, blew a place up, they would be destroyed by the media and by the political opposition. So, maybe a year's too much. I don't know how long these things take though. How long does it take for them to look into somebody's background and find out if they're kosher, if they're not, if they're just chancing their arm, if they have links to dodgy, if they're terrorist affiliated, whatever else. You need to have, basically what I'm saying is, you need to have a balance between, obviously you want the best, because it's like, these people are humans. I hate the term migrant. I hate the language that's used in a lot of the kind of right wing press, where that you're dehumanising people.
It's the same way. It's the exact same thing as what, you know, and I don't want to go down that road, but it's the exact same thing as what the Nazis and stuff done. Where as long as if you strip it, if you make it about a migrant, if you make it about an immigrant, if you make it about a refugee, you're not making it about a person. You're not making it about a child or a woman.
Well, that's it. And there was an article in the Daily Mail a year and a half to 2 years ago by a specific columnist who I'm not even going to mention her name because I don't want to give her any airtime at all because she thrives on it. She loves it. People hate her. You all know who I'm talking about. If you don't,
I hate her.
If you don't, then you know you will, or you don't listen to us.
Your husband might know who she is, and he might frequent fields with her because that happened with her.
Yeah, anyway, so her, she was talking about what was the exact term? Basically, referring to them as like rats and scum and using horrible phrases like this. And when you refer to humans as vermin, that was the word, vermin. When you refer to humans as vermin, that is a mandate for murder. That is justifying murder. That is dehumanising people.
Especially when you're scummy as hell. Like, no, but seriously, I mean, I know that you're laughing, but I mean, like, she's not exactly, like, you know, she's not exactly the most upstanding of human beings, or like she...
I feel like we're doing exactly what I didn't want to do and talk about.
Yeah, I know, but all I mean is like, if you're listening to the advice of a person who doesn't deserve the airtime, doesn't deserve to be spoken about, doesn't deserve to have anything that she's got from a kind of fame type of scenario, because she's just the worst type of person, then, you know, like, you should probably be questioning yourself, because if that's who you're going to for your moral compass, and she's a fucking idiot, and I would like to just go on record to say I'm more than happy to continue this on Twitter. She is a fucking idiot.
Anyway, yeah, but, you know, there's always going to be a market for people like that. There's lots of them in the States. You know, there's Fox News people, there's Sean Hannity types, there's people who say ridiculous things. What do you call your man? Is it Alex Thompson, the mad, like...
Alex Jones,
him. Like, you know, there's an audience for
he's
everybody.
He's a good level of mad.
But, you know, but wait, you need to look at the numbers. Like, so net migration for Office for National Statistics, it has the net migration estimate to the UK for year end September 2016 as 273,000 people. So that's actually a good bit up towards the 300,000 level. So
it's higher than average, but
so
average isn't. No,
so
but
then you're talking. You know, you're moving towards 2.7. If you get the same number on average for the next decade, that's 3 million in the next decade.
But my feeling with the Migration Watch is it was a fucking grade A shot in the dark, because if I look at the numbers, it's like 163,000 1 year, and then suddenly it's like fucking 400,000 in like a good year.
But hey, you can't knock them.
No, they got the number fucking right close. All I'm saying is like, if you actually look, because we looked at the numbers today, and because you're actually looking at the numbers, the chances that you're going to guess that in 2 years the migration is fucking really good, and in a couple of years migration is really bad. I don't know if what we're using is bad and good, but essentially as it stands, low migration, high migration, like, there's, looking at the numbers, like, they got the number right for the most part. Yeah. But fuck me, the chances that they got that right, I mean, like, that, for all intents and purposes, looking at the numbers that we've got, so using hindsight and looking at the numbers we've got, that's a fucking decent guess.
Yeah, but also we look at hindsight, the numbers we've got at the time. Everybody who was kind of clued up about it went, that's a ridiculously high number because it's 4 times what there has been the past decade. What signifiers do we have statistically that point us towards there being 2 million? It doesn't make any sense. They obviously didn't pull it out their arse. They've got it from somewhere.
Well, here's a thought though. What if they had chose a number that they thought was on the high side? Like, they wanted to have a shock number. A number that they didn't really think in 10 years' time it was going to hit. Just by fucking chance it did. I mean, you're talking about 40. Like, I mean,
that's sheer conjecture though. I want to go back to the numbers, like, and I want to get back to the fake news aspect of this, right? Because you've got 273,000 is a number that the estimated number, and it's important to state that it's estimated because they do this off of sample sizes. They do this basically off of asking people coming in and out of airports, where are you going, where are you coming from, and then extrapolating the numbers from there to, like, you know, obviously it's not just as simple as that, but it's a sample size. There's a bit of guesswork involved, and it is an estimate 273,000. The Office of National Statistics states that it's plus or minus 30,000 for all the predictions they make, and actually the margin of error for the net migration is even bigger than that, because you're taking the estimated immigration, which will be, you know, say sort of 600,000 ish. You've got the estimated immigration out. Both of those are estimates plus or minus 30,000, and then you're taking them, putting them together to come up with this net migration figure. So you've got even less confidence in the number.
Plus and minus 60,000.
Yeah,
anyway.
well, yeah. It's
On a good day.
They call it a confidence interval, which I think is great. Basically means it's a bit of a fucking shot in the dark. We're just tossing some fucking sand in the air and see which way the fucking wind blows. But
mostly guesswork.
It then gets reported in the media. So, like, the Guardian took the numbers from the ONS fucking estimated figures, and they reported it as a definitive drop of 49,000 for the last year compared to year end in September 2015, even though the ONS explicitly states that it's not statistically significant. Like, it was 49,000, but could have fucking actually went up for all they know, really, because it's not large enough of a difference for them to say for sure it went down. But you've got the Guardian reporting it as a definitive drop, saying this is what's happened. Immigration to this country's going down. You know, Brexit's putting people off coming here, was the tone of their article. The Mail Online had exactly the same article, but and the Daily Mail printed this as well. But its headline was "Record numbers of Romanians and Bulgarians arrive in UK."
From the exact same figures. I mean, from the exact same figures.
Now, in fairness to them, it was true that EU2 citizens, which is Romanians and Bulgarians exclusively, increased to 74,000, and it did state on the ONS that is statistically significant because it's the highest ever recorded number of people coming through those two countries. So they kind of it was like definitively it has went up.
Yeah, but if you've got one paper looking at the overall numbers and saying it's gone down, and one paper looking at the specific drilling down into the figures and saying, but this figures went up, but it didn't say this figures went up and also immigrations went down.
No, they did kind of, the tone of their article was that was the headline, but the tone of the article was this has went up, but polls and checks and stuff like that aren't coming as much, and that's because of the success of Brexit. Was basically was their angle on it. You know, they were saying we've won, this is a great thing, we've stopped all these bloody foreigners coming to the UK. So, you know, that's fake news right there. When you've got the source of the information being skewed in its reporting so massively that you're seeing it from two completely different sides. They're choosing to focus on different numbers, and they're choosing to present it as a bad thing on one hand and a good thing on the other hand, which is why you're better going, just find out what the fucking source is for the information, go and look at it yourself.
Choose something right wing, choose something left wing, and see if you actually run all the numbers.
Or if it's based on statistics, just go and get the statistics. Like this, I was kind of impressed by the fact that you can download the spreadsheet which contains all of the individual information here, split into tables, notes and comments and fucking everything. It's all there. I know that the vast majority of people aren't going to go want to look at a fucking spreadsheet on immigration numbers.
Spreadsheets get me hard though.
Oh yeah, I'm right at spreadsheets.
Aye man.
Spreadsheets are like foreplay to me.
Sexy tables. And spreadsheets. I don't find other tables sexy. That's just weird.
Oh well, yeah, each to their own.
Each to their own though.
Yeah, but you know, the information's there. It's freely available to anybody who wants it. Download it. Fucking look at the spreadsheet yourself. Or
You can PDF it to your phone.
Yeah, or you can just read the. You can read the summary. You can read the summary, and they'll tell you. They'll tell you, you know, what's statistically significant, what's not. There's a comment on it from a statistics expert sort of saying, well, this shows this shows this. They state, you know, yes, the number of Bulgarians and Romanians coming out of the country has went up, but it's not a long term trend. It's a one off year. We won't know what long term effect of Brexit is until we see it over, you know, the next few years.
What if you're a lazy cunt and you essentially don't want to look?
I'll just read the mail online.
Fair enough. No. But what I mean is, and I don't mean lazy cunt, but what I mean is, say you don't want to sit and troll through a spreadsheet to fucking get the numbers.
Yeah,
I'm going to be like, so I've pulled in the spreadsheet. I'm wanting to look at the figures. It's got me excited. I've had a poll instead. Where am I going to get
your excitement's died.
It's died and the spreadsheet's gone because I don't want somebody to catch me looking at a spreadsheet.
Excitement's died, and my respect for you has a little bit too.
No, it's not. You knew how I felt with spreadsheets. But on a serious note, what how would you approach it? So if you don't,
it's the same as we always say. Read it for your right wing source. Yeah, read it for your left wing. So read it for a couple of different sources, a number of different sources. Look at the actual. Like, try and drill down to the actual numbers that are presenting you. Kind of take all the fluff and whatever out of it. You know, all the kind of flowery language, all the leading, the kind of pointers, the tone of the article. Take that out of the way and look at, well, what are the actual numbers? What are the trends? As it went up, as it went down? What are the reasons for that? You know, think about, like, earlier when you said to me about Migration Watch, right? You were like, only goes up to 2004. What's the reason for that? And I was like, well, isn't that the year that they joined the EU? So
it was a decent guess, by the way, and it actually was. But
right.
You know, it was.
But that's just because I was thinking, well, maybe there is a genuine reason for it.
But we're still able to pull those figures, so that's what the problem is.
It's not a genuine reason. Yeah. But the point.
But it's a reason that they can use. So it's a reason that they can present information they can present information in a way that also looks true, because technically it is true, because technically things did change. You went from a standalone country or a sequence of standalone countries to part of the EU, and at that then the information is different. You get free movement and stuff like that. You can still find that information if you want, and like I don't expect everyone to go and look for information. See, to be honest though, see if you're listening to our podcast, you probably do go and look at information. Either that or you've came to us and we're looking at the information for you. So fucking quality, You don't even need to look at it at all.
If you are relying on us to look at it,
it's heavy going, man. It's we look at information, and you know we quite frequently forget it. And then we need reference points all over the fucking place. You wouldn't believe us. Phones and paper as far as the eye can see.
Yeah, I've made a point of making notes this time, because last time I was just looking at things on my phone. You could hear the bits where I was just like, it was not good listening. Psycho
gibberish. But I mean, that was our pilot episode.
So here's another thing, right? So just on the subject of immigration, I was watching BBC. I'm not trying to totally hammer the BBC here at the minute, by the way. It just so happens that a lot of the stuff that I've seen that has struck me as being unkosher has occurred on the BBC. Although
they're also like a big faceless fascist network that work for the government.
They're not fascist. They might be. I would like to say that the deportation centres that you were talking about, like the kind of jails for asylum seekers and stuff around this area, the west of Scotland. There was a really brilliant expose into them by the BBC, kind of by a guy that we know. So like that.
So we're plugging it. So you want to be looking at it.
For full disclosure, we know the guy who did it, but it was a really good piece, and it kind of called a lot of the stuff that the government was doing into question. So fair play to them for publishing that. But despite all that, I did still see something that pissed me off. So, watching the news, right, and there was like actually, I should give you the background on this first. Guy Assad Shah, he was like Glaswegian news agent, shopkeeper type dude.
Was his first name Guy?
No, his first name, he's not Guy Assad Shah, it's just Assad Shah. He happens to be a guy.
Right, cool. It's not Guy Assad Shah.
It's not Guy Assad, although that's pretty good. Guy Assad. Anyway, right. So yeah, he got murdered by this mad motherfucker called Tanvir Ahmed, who was like,
You with the names, man, like all over the fucking pronunciation, isn't it?
I lived in that.
Did live in a desert for about 5 years.
So he was like a Bradford taxi driver. He came up to Glasgow and confronted him because Assad Shah, he's an Ahmadi Muslim, it's like a specific sect, and he had said some stuff about it.
Can I ask a specific question though?
Yeah.
So the guy, the Bradford taxi driver.
It wasn't called Guy Bradford taxi driver. It was just a Bradford taxi driver. He was a guy.
Like everybody's called Guy. No. He came from Bradford to Glasgow to confront this like little shop owner on the back end of like the fucking west end of Glasgow or south side of Glasgow or some shit. Like so he thought from Bradford, which by the way is a fucking trek, that he was going to travel to Scotland to confront.
It's right up the M6. It's grand.
To confront a man in a shop in like the middle of tenements.
Yeah, but he'd been
an online
Assad
argument.
Shah had been posting YouTube videos.
Oh right, okay, cool.
It wasn't like you just heard about him.
Just like some cunt had said, by the way, there's a boy up there and he's saying loads of stuff.
Have you heard of that Assad Shah guy?
Like,
What guy? Assad Shah? No, Assad Shah the guy. Oh right, okay. Yeah, I have heard of him. No, so he'd been posting stuff on YouTube, right? And this is the point I'm making. So he was an Ahmadi Muslim, a specific sect, and they believe things that are slightly different, like the Sunnis and the Shiites. They believe in like prophets after Muhammad, if you will. So they believe that other folk kind of came since him and said stuff which is relevant to the religion, whereas like the Sunnis, especially particularly fundamentalist Sunnis, believe that only the word of Muhammad is kind of,
the word of God.
Yeah, anything else is blasphemy. And that's the issue that this guy Tanvir Ahmed had with him. He was like, you are being blasphemous. So he drove up. He was like, you're being so blasphemous that I'm going to drive all the way up to Bradford and stab the fuck at you.
In his taxi.
I don't know if it was in his taxi. That's a hell of a fare though.
That's what I was thinking, because if he like got somebody that needed a taxi from Bradford to Glasgow, it'd be worth a fortune.
Have you got to Glasgow, mate? Well, maybe that's what happened. Maybe it was just like
right place at the right time.
Oh, I'm so glad.
There's a guy I want to stab. We are making light of the fact that this man get fucking murdered, and I really don't mean to.
No.
But it was funny.
Can I swing past my bit and grab my knife? So before we go, no, that is like. See, he came up. Hey, if you didn't laugh, you'd greet. He came all the way up. He confronted them in the shop or outside the shop. And was like, you've been blaspheming. No, I haven't. You have. And Assad Shah, who by all accounts, he was like, I know people who went into the shop and know him. Quite a few folk.
I know a few folk as well. Yeah.
Gutted when he got killed and stuff. Like by all accounts, he was a really nice guy.
He got folk like Christmas cards and shit like that,
yeah.
And like just generally was a normal person. Like the fact that he was religious was totally irrelevant to the fact that he wasn't a dick with it.
Yeah, he was just he got on with everybody. He was by all accounts a really nice guy. So when he was confronted by Tanvir, he kind of just sort of tried to speak to him, whatever. And he was like, "Oh well, look, we'll agree to disagree." And they offered him his hand to shake his hand, and Tanvir responded by stabbing fuck at him, because he wasn't.
Tanvir sounds like an absolute bell end man. He does. He sounds like a bell end. Imagine getting in his taxi. Oh, unpleasant.
So that's what happens. That's the background to this before I go on and speak about it. About the thing on BBC that pissed me off. It wasn't two guys sitting having a laugh about Assad getting stabbed to death.
Because that would have upset me as well. Just saying.
Oh, we just did it.
I know.
Right.
I hate myself.
So watching the telly, and it was a report on BBC about how this Tanvir Ahmed guy, he's in jail now because he got found guilty.
One would imagine.
Yeah, good. Mm-hmm. But he was like, he'd been sending stuff out through social media, whatever, to Pakistan, where he's from originally, and they've been having big mad rallies, like these fundamentalist Pakistanis have been having rallies, basically proclaiming like a local hero, saying that they're glad that he did what he did, that Assad Shah was a blasphemer and he deserved to die, and just sort of like being a bit fucking mental and mad, and giving it large, and there was like thousands of folk there around the town, and the BBC was covering this in a way that sort of the general tone of the piece was, see,
Fundamentalist Pakistanis, they're all like us.
they're all fucking mental, don't want them coming over here, this is what they do. Which, you know, don't get me wrong, I would not welcome these guys to live in my street, because they seemed a bit fucking raj, and they seemed to be thinking it was totally okay to stab folk when you don't agree with them. Those are not the kind of people that I believe we need in this country.
Are we sure though that the video that we're showing, and I'm not suggesting that the BBC would do this, but I'm also suggesting that I know for a fact the BBC have done this before, which is they've shown a rally in a specific way to, like, you know, make it look like there's thousands of people there when there's actually like fucking 6 dicks standing outside in the rain, like essentially coming back to what you were talking about with the yes and no referendum and stuff like that for leaving the UK. We know from people who were in the street at the same time that they had filmed it in such a way that, you know, if you push 20 people really close together and give them a couple of signs, it looks like 20,000 people.
We saw it, like, people were posting photos on social
Yeah,
media.
friends were in tenement flats behind them posting
Yeah.
pictures of like the 12 people, and we were watching it side by side. So I'm just saying that, do we know that these rallies were, you know, 10,000 psychos
I'm not saying
celebrating?
10,000.
No, but what I mean is like thousands,
Yeah.
hundreds of people, or
It could have been filmed that way.
Yeah, cool.
It
Just-
certainly seemed to me to be a gathering. From what you could see on the screen, you could see individual kind of hundreds of people. You know what I mean? So it didn't seem to me they were misrepresenting the information to that level.
it would be nice to know. It would be nice to see the footage, just to look over and see if we can find
Well, no, I can
comparisons. I mean, we will look at it, and we'll provide it for other people.
Yeah.
But in that time, I want to have a look at it, and I'll maybe put up some comments underneath it regarding what I think. Maybe just because of what I've seen the BBC do in the past, I'm just wondering if the rally they were showing was much more about something else. Essentially, you know, when we're watching the Trump rallies or the anti-Trump rallies that happen with women and stuff like that, depending on how you wanted to frame it, there was lots of different people protesting about lots of different things.
They had interviews with some people who were attending the rally talking about the Tanveer Ahmed guy and about other sort of terrorists, I guess you would call them, or like, you know, Islamic fundamentalists who had done similar things elsewhere, who they also considered to be heroes.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I was getting at. Was it just for Tanveer, or was it for essentially any fundamentalist?
I can't answer that question.
Cool. It'd be nice to just get a kind of idea with that. Don't know if it means we would have to have someone who could, I don't know, maybe actually
Speak Pakistani.
speak Pakistani and read like Sanskrit or whatever it
No,
is.
actually,
that
no, Pakistani's a language, or is it? It's like Urdu, or I think it's Urdu.
Urdu and Hindi, isn't it?
No, I don't. There would be very, very few people in Pakistan who would speak Hindi, because there's very few Hindus in Pakistan.
But there's lots of Indians in Pakistan, because Pakistan was India 60 odd years ago.
Yeah, no, but I think like
I know, I hear what you're saying. No, like Urdu and Sanskrit, possibly. Certainly, I know there's two. My friend Azam, I know that he speaks one. Oh, he speaks Punjabi.
I was going to say Punjab.
So he
is like,
speaks Punjabi and reads Urdu,
yeah, I would say Punjabi and Urdu.
but can't speak Urdu. I've pointed out to him that then he can't read it, but he says he can. But anyway, so like that's a different argument within itself. But certainly Punjabi and Urdu is what he speaks or reads or whatever.
Anyway, the thing that struck me was you've got two immigrants here that we're talking about, you know, or two types of immigrants. You have Asad Shah, who was contributing to his community, had
In a big way. I mean, he was contributing in a large way. I mean, a lot of the general consensus was that he was properly a great fellow who done lots of nice things. I mean, like, he wasn't just like there making money, paying tax and stuff like that. Like, he was like a cornerstone of the community. People genuinely, people liked him.
beacon for Islam in the west of Scotland,
Which is needed, because most of the places in the west of Scotland that have a kind of strong Islamic culture are shut off from a lot of the rest of it. Like, if you go to certain areas in like Cessnock and stuff like that, pretty much everyone is Islamic, like every single street and where all the mosques are and stuff like that. Like they're all, and that then breeds culture issues. You know what I mean? It just breeds problems. So someone like that is a positive role model we have in the community.
Yeah, and again, cross community relations always
Yeah,
a positive
yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
You know, if you're somebody who harbours certain ideas about certain types of people, certain people of a religion or a nationality or whatever else, a colour of skin, a sex, a gender, and then you have to deal with those people, interface with them, and discover that they're like actually really bang on sound.
Oh, they're just people.
That's going to change your
Yeah.
perception.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So he's what we would consider a good, in inverted commas, immigrant.
A positive immigrant.
Yeah, but it seemed to me that this piece was neglecting the fact that like he was totally involved in this story and he was a part of it, and was focusing instead on the bad types of immigrant, the ones who are
The stabby type.
the stabby type, the Islamic fundamentalist, extremist type. You know, it was basically, that was the tone of the article was, look at all these nutcases, we need to make sure they're not coming over here. This guy's a hero because he did a bad thing. And neglecting to mention the fact that, you know, I understand that we don't necessarily want everybody who wants to come here to come here. I mean, I suppose if I was a more conservative in my politics, I would ask the question of Tanvir Ahmed. If he doesn't believe in the idea of people being able to, you know, freely practice their religion as they see fit, what the fuck's he even doing in the UK anyway? Because that's what this country is supposed to be about.
Well, yeah, but on the most basic term, that's what the country is about now, because of lots of people that have had lots of different religions and lots of different ethnic backgrounds have came here, and over a long period of time that's developed into what is the cultural accepted society that's in the UK. Like, if he's came over here, and firstly we have to look at two things.
Both of these guys were born in Pakistan, by the way.
Right, yeah, so, but he comes over here and you don't know if he's came over with fundamentalist ideals, you know what I mean, essentially with the idea that I really want to stab somebody that disagrees with me from a religious point of view. He could have come over here either, I mean, I don't know, but either particularly young, where he's been shaped once he's came over here.
I suspect the guy's probably mentally ill, actually, to be honest.
Anybody that wants to stab somebody, I mean, even like stabbing someone is particularly dark across the spectrum. Like you know, if you shoot someone, you can shoot someone. You're shooting someone from a distance away, and you've shot them and they're dead, and that's shit. But you can maybe get over it. If you're stabbing someone, you're literally at them when you're taking their life. You know what I mean? And it's dark as fuck. Like
I've read a lot of accounts from like World War II and stuff of like guys, you know, shooting people across the trenches, and when it came to like actually having bayonet fights with people, both sides have went, nah, fuck that, can't do that.
I don't want to stab someone,
and just kind of moved away, just walked away from the conflict entirely. So yeah, it's not an easy thing.
He also fucking drove from Bradford to Glasgow to stab a guy because of what he had put on Facebook or some shit. That's intense.
That is.
I mean, that's. I get into arguments with people on Facebook and YouTube and the likes all the time, and never once have I thought.
Driven from Bradford.
No, never once have I even thought I want to stab that guy. Let alone I want to drive the distance from Bradford to Glasgow to stab that guy. Like, I say that.
I've a couple of times thought I want to stab that guy.
I say that, and I can't be 100% certain that was true.
I've never said to myself I want to drive from Bradford to Glasgow to stab him, but I've probably thought to myself I would go out of my way to stab that guy.
I've never thought I'd go out of my way to stab him. Like I said, it's dark. Like maybe hit them with a bat or knock them down if they were like crossing the road in front of you.
I've thought to myself, oh God, I'd love to make sure that guy had a really rubbish day.
Like to put tacks in his shoe.
This is totally not relevant, right? But it's a really funny story that I heard the other day. It really made me laugh. this German guy. Just when we were talking about, oh, I wish he had a really bad day. Like, I wish this happened to him, right? I wish this happened to Tanvir Ahmed, right? This German guy was saying that it was like his mate's stag doing, right? So what they did was they got him really pissed, and then they put a plaster cast on his leg, and when he woke up, they told him he'd broke his leg. And he,
oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, he'd like been at the hospital and all that, and he couldn't remember anything, so he was just like, oh fuck. They were like, you have to take the, gave him like ibuprofen, like, oh, you have to take these and whatever to stop the pain from coming and all this sort of stuff. And he was like, oh, right, okay, fine. And then just like, didn't tell him for the rest of the weekend that he hadn't really broke his leg. Now, that, I suppose if it had stopped at that, it would be kind of funny, but they proceeded to not tell him up till the wedding, let him go on honeymoon, and when he came back for his honeymoon at the Maldives, then told him
that's brutal, man. That's so harsh.
That is the worst thing I've ever heard. That is.
I bet his wife fucking hates them.
Oh,
fucking
well, like,
hates them.
imagine the coppers like telling him at the end of the stag do, and then they'll be like, oh, you fucking dicks, blah 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 blah. But then like, it prevents him from having to go home and say to his wife, what the fuck is that? What's happened to your leg? I broke it. Ah, you've ruined the wedding, blah 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 blah. Oh, I'm sorry. And then having to go to like the Maldives, sit in the sun. Oh, having to go stuff down
itchy,
here, like, scratch
itchy
your
leg.
leg.
Oh man, oh, not being able to swim in the sea and all that kind of shit. Like essentially wasted the entire honeymoon.
And at the end of it, they were like, there's a peach with it.
You've now got a broke leg.
Yeah.
You're now immune to ibuprofen.
That guy needs better friends.
Aye man, or I don't know. The boys.
They sound like a.
Aye man, the boys sound like a crack, like properly.
But Tanvir Ahmed, I wish that would happen to him. Fuck him.
Aye man, aye, that would teach him. I mean, to be honest, the chances that you've got really drunk and got me though.
It's unlikely.
Hospital is very unlikely.
At least then I wish that Tanvir Ahmed, instead of driving up to Glasgow and stabbing Assad Shah, had just driven up to Glasgow, got really pissed and put a plaster cast on him and pretended that...
I would rather him not stab him.
Yeah.
We have learned on this quite a lot.
Right,
I'm not going to lie, because it is a bit fucking horrible. But yes, I do agree. One of the problems that you've got with the BBC is if they're pushing an agenda, which the BBC at the present moment are swinging back and forth quite a lot. It almost seems like they're taking a kind of almost corporate stance that is, you know, immigration is bad, but at the same time there's like some splinter group within them that, you know, every now and then want to point out that, you know, like, immigrants get a hard time and immigrants are treated particularly badly. I mean, so I get into a Facebook argument, which is something that I'm proud as fuck of, obviously, but I got into a Facebook argument because essentially people were pointing out that there was 4 folk who had drove with a car, parked it in a car park, and then were out begging. That part of itself, I don't really care about. But the point is, they pointed out that one of the beggars was Italian, and the car was registered in, I believe, Poland. Now, right now, I can't remember. It was Poland or Hungary or something similar to that effect, and it was like one of the Eastern Bloc European countries. And that's where the car was registered. Now, at no point did it point out if the guy who fucking owned the car was like Polish. You know what I mean? That wasn't a thing that they pointed out. But they pointed out that the car that they drove there was like a foreign car coming over here taking our cars' jobs. And it was one of the guys who was busking or begging was an Italian. And their whole issue was, but they drove there in the car and they paid for car parking. And there was people arguing the case where it's just like so my point was, what fucking difference does it make
where they're from?
What fucking difference does it make where the car's fucking registered or if the guy's Italian? If your issue here is people driving cars shouldn't be begging or beggars shouldn't own cars, then that's your issue. Or if your issue is fucking immigrants coming over here and duping the standard person on the street to take their money off them, then that's your issue. But don't dress the second thing as the first thing because you're too scared to just say I'm a racist. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that was, but that was my argument. Now, essentially, their point was people are coming over here, and not people who are coming over here, but people who are begging are duping the public because they can afford to have a car. As I pointed out, I mean, you could pick up a car for fucking pennies if you really wanted to, a couple hundred quid.
Also, like, I kind of get that. If folk are like begging for money, then you know.
What if the
Should they be driving about in fucking motors?
what if the cunt's living in his car though, and that's his only place that he's fucking got, and that's the only possession that he's got? I mean,
Petrol costs a lot of money.
aye, it does.
Cars cost a lot of money. Like, well, okay, so my point would be, sell your fucking motor and pay, like, you can pick up, you can stay in a hostel for fuck all.
Yeah, no, you probably could, but at the same time, for what it's costing you to stay in a hostel, to what it's costing you to run, say, for all I know it's a fuel efficient car, I didn't look into the car at all. My point was...
Sure, it's not a fuel efficient. If he's so poor that he's begging on the street, he's probably not have going to bought a car. Anyway, this is fucking nonsense.
Anyway, my point being that the argument was that I was having was essentially that it was actually the Metro, but the paper in question had
this was in a paper.
Well, it was on their online facility of the paper, but yes, it's from a.
I thought you were just saying it was just some guy.
No. This was there was actually a couple of different places that reported it, and I got into a fucking argument I didn't want to get into because my whole point was just look, if your problem here is that this is a group of people who are duping the public, then yeah, I get that. I get where the point is, but the point is that you've then said this is a Polish car, and then people were arguing back to me saying, but why would you not say it was a Polish car if it was a Polish car? Well, you would only say it's a Polish car if you want to point out that the person who's driving the car is foreign. Otherwise, like, if the issue here is someone is taking money off of people and they can afford to buy a car, then sell it as that. But selling it as that when you're actually just a fucking racist or you're pushing racist agenda, which is what it is, and it's no racist. I know that it's xenophobic, I get that. But it's still the basic principle that you are focusing on the wrong points, and the people who were arguing and putting comments were focusing on that point. They were not saying people who own cars shouldn't be begging. They were saying foreigners shouldn't be coming over here and duping our public. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fucking. And the thing is, we don't even fucking know if the guy who was driving the car was foreign. All we know is the car was foreign. Essentially, the issue is that there is a foreign car coming over here and being driven by our buskers instead of a good British car.
And essentially, like, we all have freedom of movement in the EU, and we're still in the EU at the moment. So if a beggar wants to go, if I as a beggar want to go to Spain and beg, then I'm perfectly entitled to do so.
And if you go in your own car, then you've went your own car.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, there's lots of variables to take into account to say that the guy could own a car.
Can it be cost effective to drive all the way here from Spain to beg though?
No, but you could beg your whole way, you know what I mean? Like stopping every like the
like
littlest hobo for hitch begging, you know. There's a place that keeps on calling me. Like kicking about in your car, begging from city to city. Maybe changing the luck of some little beggar as you in every city, so people remember you.
Every step I take, I dupe and you can't.
Exactly. But yeah, so I mean, just to give you an idea of there's another scenario of where people are focusing on immigrants is the problem, but the problem there is just people being dicks, man. You know what I mean? Like I don't care if the guy is black or white or Chinese or Muslim or fucking Hindu or fucking Catholic or Christian. The guy who's been a dick. That's the bit that you should focus on. As soon as you make it about a race or religion, you then totally retract from the point that you're trying to make, unless the point you were trying to make was that and you were just trying to find fucking anything. Like Breitbart, like what they do, like what Breitbart do, where they just...
crowbarring the fact that it's immigrants.
Oh, it's like, you know, these are crimes committed by black people. Totally irrelevant at the fact that the people were black. The problem is it's the crimes.
And the reality of it is, if the Metro had become aware of a car full of Glaswegians driving up to a place, then all getting out and begging, they probably wouldn't have covered the story at all.
Oh, it wouldn't have been. It's barely something coverable. But
what
poor guy possibly has a car that he lives in, and they drove an incredibly small amount of space.
Or even just con artists are conning people. You know, like con artists have been doing that since the beginning of time. Like nobody would be that surprised. But yeah, the fact that they're foreign and doing it, that is a completely separate.
And that's what they were highlighting, but they were highlighting it in a "we're not racist" kind of way, and that's what the problem is. I mean, that's kind of where the problem stands. And one of my other issues, and I'm actually just searching for the fellow right now. Going back to what we were talking about before, like I said, for the most part, this has been focused on Britain and Britain's immigration. But earlier on, we did talk about John Tanton.
John Tanton.
John Tanton needs to be addressed, right? Because there is a website called CIS.org, and it is the Centre for Immigration Studies. Now, that sounds like a fucking real thing. Sounds official. It sounds legitimate.
Sounds like a concrete building.
I'm looking at the site right now, and there's like fucking media interviews and pictures and graphs and all sorts of shit going on that makes this look like a real site. And it's given me the average household headed by an immigrant, legal or illegal, cost taxpayers $6,234 federal dollars, whereas which is 41% higher than that received by the average native household. Random statistics that numbers.
How are illegal immigrants?
Fuck knows how they're taking.
Benefits?
They are quite clearly not. But but it's only headed by the household, so it could be someone else in the household that's claiming the benefits. One would imagine.
What, for them? Like,
For them,
yeah. Can I have benefits? Can I have
benefits for Jose?
From Jose from Mexico.
I'm Jose.
Is he here illegally? No.
No. Why is he not claiming him? He's sick. Like, but yeah. So they've got these statistics and figures. But then see if you look into John Tanton, he's like a racist, and he's not even fucking shy about the fact that he's a racist. He describes the anti-immigration as an empire of organisations that he controls. Now, he pulls this information from different sites and uses this to defend his own sources.
Yeah, but like the CIS are presented as like a non-partisan, non-profit organisation.
Aye. And then they pull information from such sources as the American Immigration Control Foundation, or the American Patrol, or Voice of the Citizens, or Californian Coalition for Immigration Reform, or Californians for Population Stabilization, or the Centre for Immigration Studies, which is themselves, Federation for American Immigration Reform, Numbers USA, Population Environment Balance, Pro-English, Project USA, Progressives for Immigration Reform, Social Contract Press, US English, US Inc. He owns all of those companies. All of those companies were all his.
That's
like
quite a lot of
racist companies
for one guy to be in charge of. Or I mean, say companies. Obviously, I mean non-profit organisations.
Aye, I mean like he owns lots of standalone racist entities.
He's spending an awful lot of time making non-profit.
No, he is spending a lot of time. He actually funds all of them apart from one that he's affiliated with.
Just affiliated.
Just affiliated.
I just run about with you boys.
Aye, they're my mates. They're my honours. I'm just looking at some of the weird statistics of where he gets where they get money from. So a close friend of Tanton has got a company called Qualcomm. It's Qualcomm Foundation, and he's a close friend of Tanton, and she's the sister of Richard Scaife. Richard Scaife is part of the right wing Scaife Foundation, and they donated more than 17.
Sciaf, is it?
No. I had to read it there, but there was an E at the end. 17 million they gave to Numbers USA, and
to any non-Scottish Catholics. Sciaf is the Scottish Catholics International something fund. Aid fund.
Aid Foundation.
Yeah, we all used to have to give money to them at school.
Like
Sorry,
every day.
I've just totally cut
That's how they got you. And $15 million to the Federation of American Information Reform, which anagram is fair.
Yeah,
which is funny.
because it's not.
This is totally unfair. But yeah, so I mean, you've got these companies, and these are all companies that are all owned by him.
I like ruled. Ruled sounds
Rule's rather
accurate.
more accurate. And they're getting donations off the other companies who are friends of his for like millions and millions to push anti-immigration agenda.
I heard that he has like a big board. It's a big board, and he just pushes all those little non-profit organisations around it like little armies. Like, yeah,
like Bart the General. Yeah, so as you can probably imagine, he's like a fucking horrible human being because
Yeah, like this is the thing. So we looked at we came across some statistics from the Centre for Immigration Studies in America, right? We were like, these guys seem really biased and unfair. Let's look at who owns them, and we came across John Tanton and discovered that he was a mad racist. And like, if you look into his history, it's a bit mental. And he owns all of these. He's involved with all of these non-profit organisations which are promoting exactly the same thing. Which is why when we started looking at Migration Watch UK, we were like, well, who owns that?
well, he must be equally as racist.
And when we found out he was called Lord Green of Dediging, we were like, yeah, we're onto something here. Then it turned out he was actually...
He's actually a right nasty man. But and then you've got the Southern Poverty Law Centre, right? So the Southern Poverty Law Centre compiled this list on Tanton. And on the SPLC have classified all of the groups that I read out to you as hate groups.
Yeah.
So they've classified, like, so essentially the people who deal with the poverty law set, like the poverty law in the southern states of America, have looked at everything that he's involved with and classified them as hate groups, and without being in any way, shape or form derogatory to southern states, see if your class is a fucking hate group towards people who aren't white in the southern states, then you're real bad on that scale.
Also, you fit in.
So, you know, maybe he was getting classed for tax purposes. But yeah, so anyway, so it's just to give you an idea that you can have groups that look official, that read official, that then are pulling sources that look official and read official, but they can all just be owned by the same old racist and somewhere in the southern states of America.
They can just be pushing mad racist agenda.
Which is exactly what he does. So
John Tanton.
You have been called out, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look out for him.
Represent.
Right, so last thing then I think we have to do is I think this is going to be like a once a podcast thing where we take a specific meme.
Once upon a podcast.
Once upon a podcast, like a really good name for like a kids entertainment podcast.
That I won't be allowed to do. Only because I swear too much. So we're clear. I would like to just make that clear that like there's no other reason I can't do it.
Yeah, that's not what his eyes said. Anyway, so I was thinking a bit I was like more along the lines of once upon a podcast. Once a podcast, we're gonna do a bit of meme bashing. We're gonna pick a specific meme that we've seen on social media, and we're gonna meme. We're gonna sort them out. So the one that we had a look at this month was one that was about homeless veterans in the UK, and basically the sort of statement was a UK homeless veteran should never receive aid after immigrant, or an immigrant should never receive aid before. Yes.
Should we be giving money to our homeless veterans before we give money to immigrants? It was essentially the sentiment that it was putting across.
And they seemed to be keen on that idea. They seemed to be keen that we should be giving money to UK homeless veterans before a single refugee should be entering the UK.
So before I go on a tirade based on all of that, I believe you actually have some facts and statistics relevant. The numbers, as it were.
I'll had a look at the numbers.
Jerry Swats.
So, like, basically, this dude that I have on Facebook had posted this up, and I called him out on it because I thought it was bullshit. So before I called him out, I was like, well, I wonder. I was like, I can kind of see the point to some extent. I can kind of see, right? Okay, well, you know, if you are of the mindset that you consider veterans to the armed forces to be of a high social standing, like people you look up to, whatever, then I can understand.
I am not of that mindset.
I can understand why you would be like, well, we should look after them first, right? So, okay, how many of them are there? Was my first question. You know, is this? Do we have a fucking?
Do we have an epidemic?
Yeah, of homeless veterans in the UK. So, the best source of information that I could find for this was the British Legion, who, as you can imagine,
non-biased, I would imagine.
Well, they're certainly not going to be biased against homeless veterans. You know, they're a pro-military organisation, right? So a pretty good place to be pulling their information from. If anything, they're going to be pushing the numbers up rather than pushing them down.
Well, they're certainly going to say, there's more veterans on the street than less because they want to get the funding.
Exactly. So I had a look at their review of UK veterans and homelessness, which is actually quite a lot of good information in there. We'll put up a link to it. What they found was that there's been a trend downwards in the amount of UK homeless vets on the streets in London. From 1995, there was like about 20% of the homeless people in London were veterans. Now it's less than 6%, which brings us down to approximately 1,100 in the whole of Greater London.
Well, Greater London. What's the population of Greater London?
It is 8,673,000, roughly speaking.
So you're 0.0001%
yeah,
or something.
It's a small population.
Some fucking ungodly amount of the population. That doesn't make it right. Granted, that doesn't make it right. Any amount of homeless people is bad. But all I mean is you would expect there to be per capita more in London than there would be anywhere else in the UK.
It's impossible to say for sure, but I would certainly, that would be my belief. My belief would be
the larger the city, the more per capita you would have. The larger the city, the more per capita homeless people you would have.
Yeah, exactly. So like, the national, it said in their National Audit Office in 2007 found that less than 5% of service leavers had found themselves homeless at some point. The majority of those report homelessness for around a month.
What's the definition of homelessness there?
It was pretty unclear, to be fair. It was pretty unclear. They were basically, I think, reading between the lines, they seemed to be saying that if you'd stayed at your mom's house for a month, you were homeless. If you'd stayed on your mate's couch, if you didn't have your own house.
So literally empty. In
I've
the UK,
I've been homeless.
we've all been homeless. I mean, because I straight up lived in a caravan for a while.
Yeah,
I mean, I was with my dad's back.
Yeah.
But I was still a gypsy, I believe. I believe that's how the definition
You were a gypsy before you stayed in that caravan.
I was a traveller. I dislike the way that you're assuming my race, religion.
I dislike the aspersions that have been cast. Nah, but so basically the problem that you have with any research on homelessness and veterans is that there's only really figures for London. So yeah, you can only kind of take the figures and try and extrapolate them. 1,100 as a percentage of 8,673,000. If you take that and just exactly put it to 65 million, it works out as around 8,000 homeless veterans. As we said, you'd probably be inclined to think that London might have a higher percentage of homeless than the rest of the country, but we don't know. Real number could be less, is what we're saying.
And the definition of homeless is very loose.
And the definition of homeless is loose. But, even if you assume there's 8,000 homeless veterans in the UK, there's 10 million Syrian refugees. That's just refugees from Syria right now. So how could you compare the two problems and say they're the same?
Well, the other thing is, you would say, if you're saying there's 8,000 did you say?
Yeah,
across the board, not per year, just across the board.
At the moment.
We're saying that there's 200,000 immigrants coming into the country every single day. And we're saying there's 200
every year.
Sorry. Yeah.
Fucking hell, Paul!
Things get intense here in my head.
True.
But we're also saying that there's 280 people that are being held for a year in immigration centres at any one given point, or 210 to 260. It costs 30,000 a year. So what I mean is that's 260 people is a reasonable percentage of 8,000 people. Do you know what I mean? In the grand scheme of things, and that's what we've got coming in, who we're holding to make sure that they can be an immigrant.
That's not homeless people. It's 1,000 homeless veterans.
Yeah, I'd say no, but I specifically that's what I mean, because the argument is about should veterans get money before refugees, essentially, or immigrants across the board, not even refugees, because it's more specific than that.
Yeah, Aye, and we've already said, immigrants are generally coming here and working, so they're not actually costing.
Well, they've already
taxpayers.
statistics show that almost all of them wait for their asylum to be approved, and then they don't go underground and they work.
Yeah, that's the Samsies, but I mean immigrants in general as well. Like, you know,
generally speaking, an immigrant.
It's been shown that they're net contributors to the economy in the UK.
Yeah, a non-legal immigrant can't get benefits across the board,
no,
right? So a
no,
non-legal
no,
immigrant
yes.
can't.
So
So an illegal
take them out of
immigrant,
the
so
equation.
they're totally out of the equation here. They can't get benefits. They're not getting benefits.
But legal immigrants
Yes.
has been shown to be net contributors to society, to the tax coffers.
I mean, there is a misconception. Like, you can't just come to this country, register yourself as an immigrant, and then just sign on benefits. Like that, it doesn't work that way. I mean,
No.
and I actually do have numbers. I've got a website that I will provide at the end of it. But essentially, in the most basic term, if you're an immigrant who is, from a employable standpoint, worthless, or you don't have anything that you can bring to employment, you just want to be working something very, very, very menial without any thought or anything like that, until you can find that job, you get less money per week than someone who is on state pension. And you're not entitled to state pension because you've not been here long enough, and it's an accumulative expense. So you have to be within working age to get that money, and you're getting less money than a person who is getting a pension, which is less money than someone who is claiming job seekers, for example. So there is a scenario here where the amount of money that you're getting as an immigrant, if you meet a whole shitload of criteria to get that money, is less money than someone who is a military veteran can get from a job seeker's point of view if they're looking for a job.
Any homeless veteran who's like a UK citizen is entitled to housing benefit. They're entitled to an employment benefit. So that money is freely available to them if they're find themselves in a position that they're homeless. You know, there's charities and there's other people. They have the same. Basically, what I'm saying is they have the same services and options available
As you do.
as anybody else.
Aye,
who's
as you
a
do,
UK
right,
citizen. Are we saying that they should get particularly special treatment? There's a lot they kind of do in a way, because there's a lot of specific charities that cater to exactly that kind of issue. The British Legion being one of them.
They also get a larger pension and stuff like that for their service and stuff. They get a military pension.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
But
that
they're not
people
going to
use.
get pension till the pensionable age.
No, but you have to presume that some of them that meet the criteria must be of a pensionable age.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Maybe you don't know for a fact, but yeah,
But you would imagine that they can't all. They can't all be 20. Do you know what I mean? That's essentially what I'm getting at. And going to the idea that they've served, you're probably going to find that they're at least middle age. You know what I mean? Because they've been in service and then they've come out of service.
And then the problem with the meme for me really was it was talking in absolutes as well. It's basically saying that any homeless veteran is more deserving than any refugee.
But this falls under, right, so the reason that this causes the problem is this falls under a mentality that I don't subscribe to at all. I really don't, which is you have served your country to protect us from X, but this isn't 1944. We don't have Germany knocking on the channel telling us that they're going to fire fucking buzz bombs at London until they take us. This isn't where we are. We have not been under actual military threat for so fucking long. I mean, like, if you have chose to join the military, then fair play to you. You've chose to join the military. But in my opinion, certainly, you're no more deserving than someone who is working as a policeman, working as a fireman, working in fucking mines, working in the steel industry, working in the oil industry. All these things are dangerous as fuck. Like, I mean, they are dangerous jobs every day.
Unnecessary for our salty kind of...
Like, I can guarantee you that, see if there was nobody in the North Sea pulling out fucking oil, but there was people who were in, well, maybe that's a bad example because they were pulling out oil as well, but see if there was nobody working in the fire brigades in Scotland, but instead we had the Scottish Borders Guards over in fucking Iraq, the fire brigade would have meant that we would have all died in like house fires and shit, whereas the guys who are fighting in Iraq are fighting for fucking corporate, essentially fucking business assets and stuff. Do you know what I mean? They're fighting for control of oil and control of assets and control of natural resources, and maybe overthrowing a regime that doesn't meet certain criteria and shit. But essentially, they're not protecting the UK. There is nothing they're doing that is stopping me from being shot in the street tomorrow.
Now, and like perfect example of that. Well, like my father was in the RAF, right? So like when I was born, my dad was in the Royal Air Force. So like I suppose in that respect, I come from a military family, I guess.
His father was also in the Air Force, so you definitely come from a military family.
And unlike my grand and mother side was and stuff as well, but like my dad grew up where like that was what he wanted to do because everything like, you know, he grew up in an age of like with propaganda, like the comics and stuff of the day were still really promoting the idea of like, you know, serving in the military was a really great thing to do for your country and all that kind of stuff. And then he did it, and he went and like served in like the Gulf War and the Middle
Falklands.
East, and the Falklands, and like particularly his time in the Middle East, like made him realise that it wasn't doing it for the benefit of the people back home. He was doing it for the benefit of
assets,
multinational corporations, and assets. People who were tied into big business within America and within the UK. And because of that, my dad actively discouraged me from joining the military because he could see that it wasn't something to, you know, you weren't going out there to be a hero basically. And so I suppose that state of mind that the meme was kind of referring to does depend on whether you consider the military to be heroes. I have no problems with your kind of, you know, your average guy, your infantryman in the army or whatever over there. Any of those people, a lot of them are from socially disadvantaged backgrounds and stuff. And it's certainly in America, you know, they take the poorest of the poor and they use them as cannon fodder.
And for another day, we'll actually talk about that in greater detail because it's not just the propaganda to get you involved, but then they do, even beyond the conspiracy, and so we're clear, I'm so conspiracy minded, but beyond that, they do pump them full of barbiturates and they do pump them full of other things, and they check to see how they react in those situations, and that's documented stuff. That's not stuff that I would like to talk about, and maybe in a different podcast one day I'll talk about that, but certainly even recently there's a podcast called Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, and it's a good podcast. It's three guys, they've got other podcasts that they do, and it's not about that type of stuff, but specifically in this they touch down on lots of different subjects, and they have guys from the military in, like doctors in the military who had active duty, and they even talk about the fact that they were pumping them full. It's a bad way to explain it, but essentially there's doctors who were serving in the military who refused to take the vaccinations that they were getting sent, but they just signed their books to say that they had taken them because they didn't want to put them in their body, and they didn't know what they were putting in their body. But there was also like Red Bull and the equivalent, so we're clear, and I would like to retract that. It wasn't Red Bull. There's a name. There's a name for the specific energy drink that they were given. They were giving it all the fucking time to the point that they were having health problems with it. And these are guys who are doctors in the military from active service who were talking about the fact that they were pumped full of this shit all the time. And those people, to an extent, I have respect for. Maybe not in the same way that fucking... See, like, when you see someone that's got, like, Help for Heroes hoodie on, and it's like, what heroes? Like, I get that. I mean, that's just my feeling. Like, I respect someone being in the military, but no any more than I respect someone being in the fire brigade, or respect someone being in the police, or respect someone they're just doing a job that has to be done that I know is shitty as fuck. I've got it cushy. I work in IT for the most part. I have to work in shitty places. But at the end of the day, I'm still only working at IT. There's no cunt shooting at me. You know what I mean? I don't have to worry about a sniper killing my friend. That's not a thing. So I get that, and I respect him for that. But I don't respect him in the same way that.
I don't respect the aim. I don't respect like what.
I don't. I don't believe that they should be less homeless than someone who worked in the fire brigade. You know what I mean? Like which is essentially the question that you're being asked when you're showing that meme.
Well, no, you're asked should they be less homeless than a refugee, but a refugee could be a child who's had their home blown up.
Refugee could be a fucking...
killed.
Could be a world professional at fucking doing brain surgery for cancer patients.
Yeah.
He could be a refugee. Now, in the nicest possible way, see if you've done a service in fucking Iraq and you have been a foot soldier and you've been shooting at shit and stuff like that and you're homeless, then yes, you deserve to be treated like you have served your country. Not protected anything, but served your country. But surely there is an argument that makes it clear that you don't deserve to be treated any better than a refugee who is a world-class brain surgeon who is saving people's lives every single day. Do you know what I mean? Like,
you just deserve a level playing field.
Exactly. No, but that's it. You don't deserve it anymore, though.
No, you don't. You don't. But they're both victims of war, essentially, right? They're both victims of war.
But one has a translatable skill that you can use tomorrow.
Well, yeah. So, like, to a society, one of them maybe has more worth than somebody else. But then, you know, that's just a specific example you're talking about. What I'm saying is every case should be taken on its merit.
Yeah, but every case should be taken on its merit.
The important points are, A, UK homeless veterans is not a massive proportion of the population. It's not an endemic problem that we really like. It is obviously anybody who's homeless that needs to be addressed, but it's not like we have millions and millions and millions of people worldwide who are in that situation.
This isn't post Vietnam America where like one and so many soldiers were coming back and they were shunted by their government. That's not what we're living in.
So that's the first point. Second point is, we're all humans. Every human deserves to be treated as such, and we all should treat people who are coming from war zones and stuff with, you know, humanity and give them the best we can give them. Third point is that the meme is talking in absolutes, whereas, you know, it's basically saying if you're coming from out with this country, then you deserve to be treated after somebody who is from within the country, especially somebody who has served in the armed forces. But as you've pointed out, the person who's coming out of this country from elsewhere could have an absolutely massively valuable skill that we really require, and there's like lots of evidence of Syrian people come over here at the minute who are now working as teachers, working in hospitals as doctors.
In Syria they still have, that's it, they still have lawyers, they still have judges, they still have fucking nurses, and those people are still refugees when they leave their country because of war. Like, I mean, that skill set is relevant.
Now, the counter argument to that is that some of them could be coming over here as undercover agents for ISIS to do bad things. But conversely, a homeless veteran, just because he's a veteran doesn't make him a good person. He could have sexually abused somebody, he could have battered women, you know, he could have done bad things as well.
He could just be mentally jilted because he's been fucking in a war situation shooting cunts, you know what I mean? Like there could be a scenario where where they're not stable. Like it happened at the end of, so using Second World War is a great example of, you know, a bazillion people who had been in war. There was lots of people who came back back dark and broken and like unable to fit into society anymore because of the horrors of war that they had to experience, you know what I mean? So like that happens, like that's, and it's, there's, just because they're a veteran doesn't ever mean that doesn't give them you shouldn't view them in a different way because they're a veteran, is essentially what I'm saying. They're just another person who is on the streets. The fact that they're a veteran is totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start giving credence to the fact that they're a veteran, it then means that you're putting them above, you're giving them a specific level above everything else. And that's dangerous for lots of reasons. I mean, that's dangerous for lots of reasons.
Because it's encouraging, like if you put those people on a pedestal, you're encouraging people to go and do it again. The next generation.
Yeah.
Like, my position is everybody in the world deserves basic human rights, deserves shelter, deserves food, deserves an education, deserves healthcare. Everybody, no matter what colour they are, no matter where they're from, and there's more than enough money in the world for us to do that. We just choose not to.
So see that Mimi that you had been talking about a minute ago? There was a post under it by a guy who lives not particularly far away from where we live. and his post under it said immigrants were coming over here. I'm sure he specifically said like Romanians or something. He chose some random country that he clearly didn't like, and it says they were coming over here and they were getting given 50-inch TVs. They were getting given 50-inch TVs, and his daughter wasn't even able to get funding to furnish her house, and she's got a son, and she was in her early 20s. And as you could probably imagine, one of the most beautiful things that I've ever witnessed on Facebook was he got tore apart for that comment, because for a start, it's no fucking true, right? Romanians aren't coming over here and being given 50-inch TVs like it's fucking Bruce's Price is Right or something, do you know what I mean? Because if it's a generation game and it's the only thing they could remember.
I was going to totally pretend to be a Romanian.
But he got fucking tore apart, and people were pointing out to him that
15 or 15, by the way.
50, 5
I was going to say, because of 15 and
yeah, you'd be shite.
Fucking rubbish.
I got a TV from 1992. But like, he get tore apart because, like, he had decided, and then he started rhyming off various other bigotry and xenophobic comments and stuff that I'm not going to repeat here, because I would like to believe in some form or another we're better than that. But essentially he was saying things based on religion and bigotry and stuff that we have to deal with in the west of Scotland. And the guy in the most basic term is an asshole. There's a girl and her first name is Chelsea. That's the only part I'm going to say about her, but she's from that neck of the woods, and she tore this guy apart in an eloquent way. She was rather pleasant in doing so, but she pointed out that maybe his daughter should stop worrying about trying to get money off the government and maybe try and get a job that she can support her family, and not have her dad being on the internet complaining about it, using Romanians as the reason that she's not getting money. And maybe Romanians aren't getting 50-inch TVs because they think that is fucking mental. And just it was a beautiful thing to see, under the fact that, like, this guy had taken the bit about veterans and how they should get paid more money and changed it to how his daughter wasn't getting money because Romanians were getting TVs, because there's some deep-rooted racism that is in the UK. And I know it's not racism, it's xenophobia, but there's this deep-rooted attitude that is, like, people are coming over here and the government give them everything, the government are giving me nothing, and that's not the case. The numbers show that that's not the case. It shows what they get.
And if you look at it, like, the other thing, this is the media and the government are very adept at doing this, right? Don't look up the way. Don't look at us. Don't look at the multinationals who aren't paying any of their taxes. No, they're not the problem. The problem is, see that next door neighbour of yours who's claiming benefits? He's the one that's robbing you. See that immigrant who's just come here from another country? He's the one that's robbing you. When, in actual fact, if you look at the percentage of the budget that's spent on benefits, the vast majority of that's spent on pensions, which is people who have paid tax their whole fucking life and deserve a little bit of dignity in their old age, and the rest of it is, like, disability benefit, other benefits, and some of it's unemployment benefit. If you look at the amount of money that we are not getting, which should be getting from Google, Amazon, Starbucks, all these fucking massive companies who are not paying billions worth of fucking tax, that would sort out the fucking deficit that the UK has every year in terms of its budget, and it would mean that everybody could be looked after. But it's all misdirection. They don't want you to look at that.
They don't want you to look at the amount of corporates, and that's the thing. So we're probably wrapping up now.
I'm not prepared to do anything about it.
We're probably getting to the end of this show and stuff like that, and we're probably hitting it. But here's a thought. If immigrants are taking all the money, and if there's no money for anything else, and everybody else is getting shortchanged because there's so many immigrants coming over here, the next time you get your pay slip, look at how much money you pay towards tax, and remember that the amount of money that you're paying towards tax is more money than Cadbury's is paying, than Amazon is paying, than Google is paying, than Apple is paying. They're companies which are internationally recognised. They're a brand. They have got more money. They make more money in a day than in the nicest possible way you're ever going to make in your entire fucking life. And they're not being chased. They're not being forced to pay their tax. They're not being forced to do anything.
And the papers aren't talking about them every day.
Never. They're telling you that immigrants are the problem, and the reason for that is and bringing it right back to what I had said, I try not to touch on, is See, when the Nazis rose to power in Germany, they used scapegoats, they used Jewish people, they used gypsies, they used things that you could point at and you could see and you could blame, and they were there in front of you for all their problems, but they didn't cause the problems. The problems were caused by war, by greed, by assimilation of the country in a way that suited the people that were at the top. And you can see it. You can see it all the time. You see it every fucking year since the fucking Nazis were beaten. That every time we bring in someone else, the corporations are getting away with what they want to get away with, and instead we're paying tax and we're being asked to blame immigrants. We're being asked to blame the different. It doesn't matter what the different is. Fuck man, it might not even be immigrants. It might be Catholics and Protestants. It might be
but that comes from immigration.
I know, but it's just something different.
Yeah.
It's always just blame something different and don't look at the people at the top.
But it's just in this part of the world, it's been various times. It's been the Irish. It was the Italians. It's been Polish,
Pakistanis.
It's been Polish. It's been Pakistanis. But the point is that all those people, a few generations later, are contributing. Like Catholics weren't allowed jobs anywhere in Scotland. We couldn't get into shipyards. Now you've got fucking, councillors are politicians. They're lawyers. They're doctors. They're everything. Italians, same thing. Polish, they're working their way towards that now. Pakistan, you've got Pakistani origin politicians like
Imran Khan, is that his name? The guy who's in charge of London, like fucking mayor of London, is Indian, isn't he?
Khan, yeah. Or I think more like Hamza.
The comedian.
No, the SNP guy up here. Or there's a couple. There's
There's the comedian as well that wears the pink turban.
Hardeep Singh.
Aye. I know he's Indian and not Pakistani, but I mean, essentially you're in a scenario now where you have people from different religions and races that were shunted and were not. And now the current issue is, I believe, Romanians, various Eastern Europeans, and possibly someone that comes from like Egypt or fucking Iraq or some shit. You know what I mean? These are the places that are now the problem. But the reason that they've always been the problem, the reason everybody's been a problem before that, is because you don't want to look at the oil companies and the paper companies and the petrol companies and the big businesses and the shipping companies, who are all fucking owned by the same people anyway, but you don't want to look at them because they're not paying the tax and they are getting government policy that it benefits them run through all the time. And not even so much in the UK as much as it happens in the US. The US is a big problem because you have lobbyists, and you now kind of have that problem. Yeah, I know, but not to the same. As we spoke about. No, and I get that, and I do get that, but not the same way that you do in the United States, where being a lobbyist, where the whole lobbyist system is the way that they operate politically. I mean, the way that they operate massively politically. The only reason that fucking the Republicans and the Conservatives exist is because fucking Coca-Cola and Amazon and Apple pay their fucking way.
The contradiction in the US, and we haven't talked a lot about US immigration stuff. We kind of did in the pilot, but about the wall and about Trump's immigration policy and stuff. But
and we will definitely get back to it in some episodes.
The massive hypocrisy of that is that the entire premise of the country of the USA is built on the idea of immigration.
Actually, every cunt's an immigrant.
Yeah. Come here.
Maybe not John Tatton.
And all your dreams come here and all your dreams can come true. The American dream, build a life, make a better future. They wanted as many people to come there as they possibly could, and now they're like, we've all got our dreams that you guys can fuck off. Right? Yeah. That's just a massive hypocrisy. In the UK, the hypocrisy is different. The hypocrisy is that we went around the world for hundreds of years telling everybody how fucking brilliant Britain was, taking over, forcing civilization in inverted commas upon them, and then, by various means we've either given them back their freedom, they've fought it back, and us having told them for hundreds of years how fucking brilliant we were.
Now everyone shows up in the UK because it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, they want to come here, and we're like, nah, fuck off. We went their country, took it over, told them how fucking great it was here, and when they come here, we're like, nah,
that's not great. It's ours. Fucking. Oh, and there's stories, and the thing is, well, one of the times that I would like to, there's stuff that I know about the Raj in India and stuff like that that's fucking horrible, man. Like, and we will touch on it another day.
Proper Raj.
Aye, man, proper Raj. But yeah, I think that's us just about done for
We're
today.
getting far too ranty.
Yeah, I think we're getting far too drunky. So we probably want to call it quits for this evening. But thanks a lot for listening to us. It does mean a lot to us, even though we're kindly mostly doing this for our own narcissistic reasons. But it means a lot to us that you're listening to us.
And thanks for the feedback from all the individuals that got in touch with us. Shout out to Bobby, to Christine,
To my boy Kev over in Ireland.
yeah, man, definitely.
Davey as well, David.
Yeah, David.
Goes without saying.
Thanks very much.
So yeah, I mean, there's lots of others, but we'll have a list of the people that have definitely helped us and gave us decent input. That'll be all at the bottom of this first episode. Oh, of course, Graham. And yeah, I mean, thanks a lot. It's really meant a lot to us, and we hope that you'll keep on listening. And in the next few weeks, we'll get more websites, more Facebook, more Twitter and stuff available to us. We'll put the links at the bottom of this, but we'll kind of push it over the next couple of episodes where we would like you to be interacting with us back and forth and talking to us and seeing where we're coming from.
Yeah. Tell us what shite you want us to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we'll literally talk about any old shit. Anything. Give us a project to work on. But anyway, thanks a lot. It's been great you just listening to us. I've been Paul.
I'm Jerry. Peace.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.